I'm going to call the Star City Council meeting to order. It's Tuesday, May 7, 2024 at 7 p.m. at the Star City Hall. If you could please all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And tonight's invocations by Pastor Jason Carr from Eagle Christian Church. Thank you, sir, for coming.
Mr. Mayor, let's pray. Father God, Lord, we praise you and we thank you for who you are and for what you've done for us. Lord, we praise you as Almighty God, King of the universe. God, we thank you for what you've done for us through your Son, Jesus, the forgiveness, the hope, and the new life that he offers. Lord, tonight as we are together, I pray that we would dream together, that we would plan together, that as we discuss all the items on the agenda, that we would do so in a way that honors you, honors each other, and honors people of Star. Lord, I pray that you would be glorified in our meeting tonight. In the name of your Son, Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Roll call.
Hershey. Here. Wheelock. Here. Chadwick.
Here.
Salmonson.
Here.
Nielsen.
Present. All right. Thank you. We're going to move on to item 4A, the presentations tonight. Excuse me. We have our Sheriff of Ada County here, Sheriff Matt Clifford. And he's got a little presentation to give us first.
Mayor and Council, thank you for giving me a minute here to give you an update on the Ada County Sheriff's Office. This is kind of my biannual update that I like to do for every council so that if we get new council members or mayors, then kind of express to them how the Sheriff's Office outside the contract from here, but the Sheriff's Office benefits your community. This one I focused a little bit more on some of the more benevolent things that we've done in the last year. So a little bit about the Ada County Sheriff's Office. Are we able to expand that?
Can you?
Or does it? Oh, it doesn't matter. Never mind. Looking at my notes here, they're not up on there. So we're good. Of course, our mission is to make safer places for you to live, work, and play. We're the largest law enforcement agency in Idaho. We have about 850 employees. And as I go through this, I often tell people we kind of do the largest of most things. So you'll hear that it's kind of a repetitive comment. Because of the size of our agency, that we're divided up into 5 bureaus: police, jail, court, administrative, and communications. And so I'll just run through some of those. Our service area is everything you see in white, and then CUNA in green, Star in blue, and Eagle in kind of gray or brown or whatever color that is. Over 1,100 square miles of land that we cover, 2,100 square miles of roadways. But of course, we have jurisdiction anywhere inside of any incorporated city. So the Police Services Bureau is kind of what you see outside your window, see on the news most of the time, in the form of police cards and sheriff's cars. We do all things that normal police departments would do. We have, of course, our patrol team. We have one of the largest canine units in the state. I think Nampa just beat us by 1 dog. Our SWAT team is a Metro SWAT team, so it consists mainly of Ada County Sheriff's deputies, but it also has a few Garden City police officers and Meridian police officers on it. We have our action team, which is kind of like a street crimes team. It is more of a focused group that if there's a specific problem in a neighborhood, even inside of a contract, they could come in and work that problem so that other deputies can go out and take calls for service. They do quite a lot of fugitive recovery, so a lot of high-risk warrant services here in Ada County, so like violent felons and things like that. They're kind of our Swiss Army knife. They do a lot of weird things too, like stand by at the treasurer's office when people are paying their taxes and hey, we're missing a body over here. We need you to go work patrol or the courthouse or something like that. So they're kind of a very diverse action team. We have a crime lab. It's not as big as the state crime lab, but we are working on getting up. We pretty soon, I think in the next few years, we'll have where we're basically independent of the Idaho State Crime Lab, which will benefit everyone in Ada County because we can do everything in-house instead of sending it to the state of Idaho and waiting in line for weeks or months. We'll be able to do everything. I'm currently working on trying to get our DNA testing up and running, but it's very expensive and it's time consuming as well. But we do already have a crime lab tech that is completely certified in running DNA. So we get that. It's going to be pretty amazing for some of the things we can do here in Ada County. And then of course we have our SROs. You have one at Eagle Middle, and we have them all over the county in our contracts and unincorporated.
Or Star Metal, we have one too.
You what?
We have one in Star Metal too.
That's what I said.
You said Eagle.
Did I say Eagle? Oh my gosh. We'll edit that out, right? One time. Oof. That's why these two are back here. They're dragging me out of here. I'm so sorry. One of the things we also have that a lot of police departments don't have just because of the nature of being in an incorporated area. We have an off-road team with UTVs, and we just had CUNA write a grant for some dual sport bikes that mayor has been gracious enough to say, wherever you need to deploy them, just deploy them. And then we, of course, have our motors teams in Eagle and CUNA. I'm working on trying to get motors being a motorcycle patrol, trying to work on getting those in unincorporated this year as well. So our administrative service, this is kind of an interesting bureau where they have a lot of things that are the cogs that keep the sheriff's office moving. Our records department is kind of the beehive of the agency where information is flooded into them from all over the place, places out of state, from the courts, a lot from the courts, and they got to sift through paperwork, send it to the correct agencies. We run property and evidence, not just for Ada County and all the contract cities, but we also run it for Boise Police Department. They contract with us to do their property and evidence. Statutorily, the sheriffs in Idaho are required to issue driver's licenses. So we have our Meridian location and our Boise location, and we are working currently on our Star location.
Our Star location.
It is underway, so we'll see. That should go pretty well. We also issue all the concealed weapons, victim services. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. One of the things that is pretty interesting is our fleet services. That's what keeps all your police vehicles up and running. We manage about 325 assets, we would call them. That's mostly going to be cars and trucks, but that includes UTV and a handful of boats and things. So it's a lot. They are working constantly to try and build new cars and repair cars, oil changes. We do everything in-house with our on-site mechanics at Barrister. Really handy. We're the only ones here in Ada that does that because a deputy can literally, whether they're a Star deputy or anything, can literally drive to Barrister. And my windshield wiper blades need replaced. They replace them. They drive away back into the field. So pretty cool. They do a lot of cool things. They can fabricate for us, make custom anything for our vehicles. And then finance is near and dear to my heart so that I don't get sued by the commissioners for overspending the money they gave me. So they don't say at the end of the year, Matt Clifford, you overspent by $100,000. You owe the county $100,000. So I have a really great group of finance folks that keep me apprised of everything and give me a lot of great advice. And we run our own human resources. So in reference to the contract that you may or may not know, we don't run through the greater Ada County for our human resources. Everyone else in Ada County does. But we have our own in-house human resources because we're so much bigger than the other departments. And so we can do that. So your deputies are hired through the sheriff's office.
I just want to point out on your finance thing, when you talked about the sheriff, it's the only elected position in the state of Idaho statutorily that's liable for any overspending.
Personally liable.
Personally liable.
So that story I told you.
Kind of an interesting in the state of
So,
Idaho.
Yeah, I can only imagine it is derived from some crazy sheriff way back in the day that just spent money like crazy. But yeah, I have to sign a piece of paper that says, hey, you realize this, right? So, I mean, I signed it, so. So, yeah,
Yeah, he just asked, do you get a bonus if it's under?
I do not. I do not. All that money goes back to the county. So, yep. Speaking of that, our budget this year was about $115 million. That's for everything, though. That's for all those bureaus. That includes all the contract city money that we get to run your police departments, and all the money that we get from our emergency communications fund. So that means that the dollar that you pay on your bill every year goes to the emergency communications fund, and it pays specifically for equipment and some positions to help run that equipment. It doesn't pay for dispatchers, but the equipment we have here is high tech because the amount of people that we have and the amount of funds that we can take in through that $1 fee. Some of the things that our community engagement team has done, that's also in this administrative bureau, we go out and we do a lot of community outreach through National Night Out. You guys probably have all participated in that. We do a lot of safety fairs. Our canine unit, since there's so many dogs, we can do a lot of demos at schools and fairs and all kinds of places. We definitely use the community engagement team in the contracts as well to help kind of garner support or at least showcase the Eagle Police Department or the Ada County Sheriff's Office so that, people know who we are and that we're part of the community. And then we have done some pretty cool outreach things the last 2 years. We did a program called Navigating the Ada County Criminal Justice System, and it was geared a lot towards refugees that come here and somehow may get caught up in the criminal justice system. And for even me, I have to ask questions and I work in it. And so if they come from another country and they get caught up in it, they often don't understand what's happening at any step of the way. So it was a pretty cool all-day presentation where we started with a dispatcher that explains to, and these are all folks, they're not all refugees, but they're also people that help refugees and their representatives out in the community. But explain, this is what happens when a call comes in to dispatch and then a patrol deputy. This is what happens when a traffic stop happens. And it goes all the way up through all of the different court processes. The prosecutors come and talk. Probation and parole comes and talks. It's a pretty cool gig. This year, since we did it 2 years in a row, we're going to gear it more towards navigating the mental health system. And that's actually coming up. I think it's coming up later this month. So should be a good program. Another thing we do that I find a lot of people don't realize is the Ada County Sheriff's Youth Foundation. So I know that the mayor is familiar with this, and maybe you are as well, but this America's Promise plate is specifically geared towards youth in Ada County. So $25 from your initial registration fee and $15 from your renewal goes into the Ada County Sheriff's Youth Foundation, which is a nonprofit. We in turn take that money and we reinvest it back into youth, specifically through Big Brothers Big Sisters, the Boys and Girls Club. We have donated money to the Mayor's Youth Foundation, the Mayor's Youth Council, and so we of course being the largest population, we get the most money from this than any other sheriff's office. So we have the advantage to diversify where we put it. So it's kind of nice, but people don't realize that plate, that's what that's for. I've been trying to promote that a little bit so they understand. I wanted to talk a little bit about our victim services, and some of you may have heard me talk about this before, but we did our No Shave November for the second time ever this year, in 2023. And it came about because in 2022, I'm walking into this conference room and it was that picture. That's what I was looking at. And our victim witness coordinators said, I said, what are you doing? Oh, we're having a bake sale. Well, what's the bake sale for? Well, it's for our victim fund, because we can't take our county taxpayer money and put in that victim fund, because it's literally giving money away to citizens in the form of, cards for groceries, purchasing hotel rooms for victims that can't go back to their homes, getting them, toiletries and things like that, because they can't go back to maybe where they live because it's not safe. And I said, well, how much money do you have in the victim fund? And they said, well, none. That's why we're having a bake sale. And I thought, we can do better than that. There's got to be better than a bake sale to help support these victims. So we decided to do No Shave November. We finally figured out how to include everyone. But so if you're a uniformed deputy for 2 months, I allow it for 2 months so you can grow a decent beard. You pay $50 to the Ada County Sheriff's Employee Association, and you can grow a beard. If you are a professional staff who already can grow a beard, you can wear jeans once a week and you only have to pay $30. And if you are a female deputy, we allowed them to put the little tinsel things in their hair. So this year we raised over $11,000 for that cause. And we basically pump all that into the Ada County Sheriff's Employee Association, and they cut a check to the Victims Fund. Some of it stays with the association for their benevolent fund, and then the bulk of it goes to the victim services. But I never thought that we could raise over $11,000 with beards and jeans. It's a thing. People love it. Let's see here. So our Emergency Communications Bureau. So this is going to be our 911 call center and all of the things that surround keeping that updated and running. We have the largest 911 call center in the state of Idaho. As you can see, we took about 504,000 total calls in and out of the center last year. 150,000 of those were 911 calls for service. We get about 1,381 calls per day on average. The thing that we got finally finished up this year was we had a couple of years ago, we got the dispatchers designated as first responders through the legislature. And that allowed them to be on the same retirement program as police, fire, and EMS. We did this, and it is mostly the sheriffs, the chiefs help participate, but there's only, I think, 4 dispatch centers that are run by police departments, but the sheriffs all have a dispatch center. And we were able to look and see what's going on in our dispatch centers and the toll that the job is taking on the dispatchers. People don't realize the physical toll it actually takes on them because of the mental things that they go through. It's a rough job in there where, I mean, people are committing suicide while they're on the phone with them, or they're, fielding a call. There's an emergency call where they need help and they're screaming, and then the police show up and then the line goes dead and they literally just have to pick up the phone for the next call. And it really eats on them because all they have is the hearing the call. They don't have any other senses that can help them figure out what's happening there. And just that sense of, I have no idea what happened and I'm on to the next task, really eats on them. And I mean, they go through all kinds of things. And it's not all bad. I mean, they're really great people and they do some really great things for people. But we were successful in getting them classified so that they can be on the Percy Rule of 80 and finish a little bit early in their careers and live a little bit longer life, hopefully.
Did that include the supervisors? I know there was a catch there for a little while.
That is a great question because that's what we finally got done this year. It took us 2 years to explain to the legislature. Supervisors are supposed to be in there just like a sergeant is in there for patrol. The supervisor's the same way. Like I said, we have the largest center in the state, and I've been in that center where I went to say hi to the supervisors, and I just can't because they're busy being a dispatcher, which is not ideal, but everywhere in the state, your supervisors get on there and have to handle calls. They have all the same certifications. And so it didn't make any sense that somehow they got left out. So this year it passed unanimously through the House and
So
Senate.
how many dispatchers are you short? How many more do you need to really be efficient, do you think?
So currently we have 54. I think these should be fairly accurate numbers. I could be off by 1 or 2, but we have 54 dispatchers, and there's an entity called NENA. It's a National Emergency Number Association, and they help determine all around the United States how many dispatchers you need based on calls for service in and out of your dispatch center. They have told us we need 74. So I will go again to the commissioners this year and explain that again and tell them, that's my mission is to get more. I won't be asking for 20, but I'll ask for chunks at a time.
So we just need the public to be aware that you need to talk to your commissioners to support the sheriff on getting the dispatchers for that. Because that's really that's your first line of defense on anything.
Yeah, they're
Right
the,
there.
the first
Yeah,
responders.
first
And,
responder. So.
To give you kind of an idea, there's a national standard where you try and answer the phone within 10 seconds. We're not even making it within 15 seconds. And if you think about it, the way I always put it is that if you're in your backyard and you run over your foot with a lawnmower and you have your phone in your pocket and you call 911, 15 seconds for the phone to ring is an awful long time. Because when you call 911, you're expecting someone to pick up and send you help. And then when you have more dispatchers in the center, those dispatchers, even if we're handling it in the 10 seconds, that's great. How much time do they really have to spend time on the phone with someone instead of, okay, you're all right? Right. Lock yourself in the closet. If he breaks down the door, call the cops because I got to go to the next call. We find that the more dispatchers we have in the center, the more time they can take with people that are calling in for emergencies.
That extra 5 seconds ends up being on their response time every time we talk.
It does.
We're talking about that response time and
Yep.
and that all just adds up.
It does. It does. And it's something I'm working on. I'm not asking for 20 positions. That's a big lift. But if I can get chunks to keep up with the growth and get ahead of where we need to be, I think it'd be great for the county, for everybody that works and lives here. Thanks for the comment, Mayor.
Yep.
So our Court Services Bureau, this is a fairly interesting bureau. It does everything that's related to the court, and it's got a couple of things that just got thrown in as kind of a leftover in it, but it works really well. Now, you guys have heard me talk about, because the failed bond last year, you heard me talk about most of these things that are in this bureau, so I won't really focus too much on them, but we are doing alternative sentencing, pretrial, misdemeanor probation, all of those things that help keep our population in the jail down. Now, I don't remember what day that was, but usually there's somewhere between 2,100 and 2,300 people that are on those three different types of supervision that are being supervised by the sheriff's office in the community versus the 1,000 people that are in the jail. So if we didn't have any of those things, most likely, we have 2,000 more people in the jail, or at least 1,500. So those help us keep that jail population down. We also have the civil division in this bureau. So statutorily, we're required to do evictions and deliver civil paperwork and serve protection orders and things like that. So we have a division that just does that. Our transport team is pretty kind of a cool deal. They mainly take inmates to and from the courthouse, but they also take inmates all over the county all day long, Monday through Friday. So I always tell people, if it's between 8 and 5 in Ada County, there's probably an inmate attached to a deputy somewhere out in the community, because they have to go to specialty doctor's appointments and just anything that we can't provide them in the jail, we need to take them with a deputy. They also do transports outside of the state. So I don't know if I have that number. I think we did 68 or 78 extraditions from other states. So say you have a felony warrant for robbery and you get arrested in Nebraska. Well, it's statutorily the sheriff of Idaho has to bring you in front of the court in Idaho. It doesn't matter if you robbed a convenience store in Boise or Garden City or wherever, the sheriff's got to go get you. So we go out of state and we go get those people and bring them back to Idaho. Most of the time we fly. So we have deputies have specialized training in flying back and forth with inmates. We did about 1,254 extraditions in 2023. So that's anywhere outside the county of Ada. We took inmates and either dropped them off or picked them up. One thing I forgot to mention is all of those, the misdemeanor probation, pretrial, and alt sentencing. If you add all of those numbers up, it saved us about 34,676 jail days. And so you times that by $117, which I think is what we're tallying for how much it costs per inmate per day to stay in the Ada County Jail. And that gives you the cost savings of what those people did to help keep the costs down a little bit. What is it? Yep, that sounds right. It's almost $4 million. So our jail services, again, you've heard me talk a lot about this, but it's like a small town inside a building. There are more people that live and work in that building than the town I grew up in, literally. So you have to have everything under the sun. You have to have warehouse, you have to have kitchen, laundry, all of that. Our kitchen, you've heard me say all this stuff before, but we run about 4,000 meals a day through our kitchen. And we do, I think it was 1,800 loads of laundry, 2,000 loads of laundry a month. We have a sewing program that female inmates take advantage of, so they can go and they make all of the inmate uniforms and repair all those inmate uniforms, so that we see a savings there, and it also gives them something to do. They also participate in what's called the Linus program, so they make quilts for underprivileged children, and we send those out to that program so they can distribute quilts and blankets to them. Our kitchen, do that one in a minute. We have a special response team that works in there, that big fella on the right dressed in green. I call it the indoor SWAT team, basically, but what it is a jail SWAT team. And they get deployed a bit for people that are unruly or uncooperative, but they're also obviously a specialized team that works in there. And then our health services unit is like a small hospital. We can't do surgeries or x-rays, but we can take care of most things that happen in there. We have a dentist that comes in. We have a clinic and a pharmacy, all of that. And I can't remember the numbers, but they saw just this insane amount of face-to-face medical visits last year. It was astronomical because they're just working all the time in there. You also have to have specialized training to work in there as a deputy. We don't allow deputies just to rotate in and out of there. You have to, because of all the mental health issues we deal with, medical issues, people that come in that are detoxing, they have to have that specialized training so they can recognize signs and be able to deal with some of the more, kind of fragile inmates that come in. I always tell people it's important because some of the folks that come in there either aren't able to take care of themselves, they have never cared to take care of themselves, or something like that. But the second they step foot into our building, we have to take care of them, make sure we can provide for them. So it's one of my big, risk areas. And so we pour a lot of resources into it to make sure that everybody gets what they need. Another thing we do in there through our food services is what's called the ServSafe certification. The inmates cook all the food and they run the kitchen. And so we started doing this where they can participate in this program and get the certificate. So when they get out of jail, they automatically can just go start working in a kitchen. So they have a leg up over somebody that applies somewhere that doesn't have this certification. We can give it to them in the jail. We've had 15 people graduate from it. It's been successful. So that has been running probably 8 months, maybe 6-8 months. Yep. One of the other things we do is we work with our employee association. So I've already mentioned it, obviously. It's a separate nonprofit from the sheriff's office, and the employees can choose to belong to it or not, and they get some benefits from the association. But it is very much a benevolent fund where they have a lot of their funds go back to helping injured officers and people in need inside the agency, whether they're commissioned or professional staff. And then they also do some charitable things like our Shop with a Sheriff. So it's a back to school program where we identify a whole bunch of kids, and we work with Walmart, who are very, very gracious with us, and they donate a whole bunch of money. And we pair up a deputy with a small child and take them shopping for back to school. It is mostly focused on clothing because there are so many more programs that can get them hygiene and backpacks and things. But it's kind of a focus on having some underprivileged kids feel comfortable going to their new grade, so they, don't have kind of those fears of, I had to wear my 3 brothers' shoes, handed down. So we go and just take them shopping. It's a really great program. And I should note that other agencies participate in that with us. So we'll usually have a few Meridian, Garden City, and Probation and Parole and IDOC people show up and participate as well. We just kind of welcome them in. They don't pay dues or anything, but it's all part of trying to give back to these kids. And then we do the same type of thing for Christmas. It's a little different. What we'll find certain families, it's a little bit more limited on who we are giving back for Christmas, because there are some other law enforcement agencies that do specifically Christmas for kids. So we don't want to step on their toes as well. So this is my shameless plug of that QR code. Anybody watching online will take you right to our careers page. So
Oh,
though I will tell you this though we are always hiring because of the size of our agency, there's always somebody that's through attrition or, retirement, or somebody gets fired or somebody leaves for somewhere else. There are always spots available, but we are doing better than a lot of other agencies, I think, in America. We are fully staffed in our commissioned positions, which is not normal. And the last time I checked, we only had 11 open positions out of 850, which is really great. Now, again, we're always hiring because, these 3 guys are going to retire, so we need to hire 3 more of those types of things. But the one thing that we always have a deficit of are female applicants, especially in commissioned positions. So up here, there's a jail sergeant and a patrol deputy, and then one of our action team gals. But if I hired every female that came through the door, I wouldn't have enough females working in my agency in a commissioned capacity. And so I always say I think they're out there. There are probably more females in our community that don't realize that they can do this job, or maybe haven't even thought about it. So I always tell people, if you have somebody that you think is qualified, I won't hire them just because they're a female, but I sure would like a lot more applicants. You think someone's qualified, send them our way, because we need more female deputies on the road and in the jail, period. We just don't get the applicants. So
cool. Any questions of Sheriff? Council Nielsen?
yes, sir.
Being so fully staffed compared to other agencies across the nation, what's your secret? What makes that difference for you guys?
I think our culture, there's a couple things. I mean, we really have a big population to pull from than any other place across the state. So, I mean, we've got to admit that. We are well paid. The Valley here is very competitive, and we're up there in the upper echelons. But it still remains competitive in the Valley. But I think a lot of people come for our culture, how we treat our employees, what we expect out of our employees, but what we also give to them. I always say, one of my priorities that I have for our employees is that I expect to have well-trained and well-equipped employees so they can handle whatever comes in front of them. Well, yeah, so we expect a lot out of them, but we also know we also have to give you the tools and the know-how if we want you to perform that way. I think that goes a long way with employees. They know they're going to come here, they're going to get training, they're going to get good equipment. Of course, where we live attracts people. I mean, let's be honest, that people that want to be cops in America, they land here and they know they want to be a cop here. This is a good place to live. But you guys already know that.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
All right, any further questions of Sheriff? Thank you.
All right, thank you for
Appreciate it,
having
Sheriff.
me. I appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Have a good night.
you too. All right, we'll move on to Chief Hessing for his Star Police report. Thank you, Pastor. Oh, you're standing. I thought you were leaving. Sorry.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Chief Zach Hessing, Star Police Department. Grateful for the opportunity to be able to stand before you this evening. Oh, I do want to just take a quick moment and thank Sheriff Clifford for all that he does. It's an amazing organization to work for the Sheriff's Office, and as a lieutenant for that, the Sheriff's Office there, it's amazing to see those 5 bureaus work together. And that kind of leads me into my next thank you to this community here in Star. We've had a rough couple of weeks of things that have occurred. I couldn't be more happy and proud to live in a community such as Star. And I saw those 5 bureaus of that sheriff's office come together to do things for deputies. And I saw the city of Star, with people line the street in the procession that were just packed. Again, there's not a word to describe the emotions and the how proud I was to see that and the miracles that occurred just by people reaching out and wanting to help. So again, I thank the city of Star and Sheriff Clifford for all that he does. And we do like our beards, so we're happy to spend the $50 to grow those out. I'm going to jump in. I'll make it pretty quick here because I know we have quite the agenda tonight. But for March, I know we're a little behind because I was supposed to present this last city council. I was out of town, so presenting tonight. But for the month of March, here's the numbers here. So year to date for City of Star, person crimes total is 18, property crimes is 12, and society crimes is 38. The box just to the right where I read those numbers off, that's the case report type, so you can read through kind of what those crime types are. For the month of March, we had 7 person crimes, 5 property crimes, and 16 society crimes. And if mayor or city council has any questions about what those crimes are, I can go in kind of more depth if you would like. But the citizens call for service is 267 calls. And our proactive policing calls, or that's where we go out and we find traffic stops or make stops on the street to talk to people, do security checks at houses, those type of things, was 2,034. So we're just over 7 to 1. So 7 proactive calls to 1. I guess I call it reactive call or citizen call, calling for help. So I think it is playing a pretty big impact on us getting out in there and kind of reducing the amount of crime that's happening here in Star. So select call types. The only thing I really wanted to show you, just kind of show the improvement of what we're doing. If you look at traffic stops for the month of March 2024, we had 445 traffic stops, where a year ago for the same month, we had 242. So we're 203 more traffic stops than we were a month ago in the month of March. So we are making more traffic stops. Now there are more cars driving through the city of Star, but we are getting out there and getting to know who's driving and making sure they know what the speed limits are and what stop signs are supposed to do. So we had a total of 9 arrests for month of March. 44% of those arrests were drug charges. We did add the citations. I know that a few community members have reached out and asked that we add citations to this, so I did. So out of those traffic stops that we made, we had 61 infraction citations and 20 misdemeanor citations. And those misdemeanor citations, just to know that when you get a misdemeanor citation, technically we could be taking that person to jail. Depending on if it happened in our presence, we can take them to jail, or we can get a warrant for the arrest if it happened outside our presence. But the only difference between the two things is if you get the right of the jail, but court-wise, it's the same thing. So you still have to show up to court. So we had 20 misdemeanor citations there. Mental health cases, we had 1 last month, March. And then our response time, we had 3 responses at 1 minute and 28 seconds. So when you pick up that phone, call 911. We're usually there within about 1 minute and 28 seconds for the month of March. The average so far for the last 4 months is 3 minutes and 10 seconds. And our goal here in the city of Star is under 4 minutes. So outside of Star, helping unincorporated Ada County, Eagle, Meridian, we're 4 minutes and 23 seconds of getting there. So I think we're doing a pretty good job on responding calls, but seconds matter, just as we pointed out with people calling 911. It's very important when they call that we're there to help them. So I think that's the month of March report for 2024. Is there any questions that Mr. Mayor or City Council
Councilman
have?
Wheelock?
Yeah, I just curious. The infraction misdemeanor number, are some of those double? Could those be the same person, or is that individuals both times?
Those are individuals both times. I'm trying to think of a.
So that would be 80 people getting some kind of a thing.
Yeah, I guess you could have 2 charges and 1 infraction. That could happen, but we rarely do that. So I think more than likely that's 81 people that received a paper certificate. So, yep.
Councilwoman?
Yes, thank you. So the drug charges made a significant jump this month, and I was curious if that is due to the increased number of traffic stops, or what that reasoning why so significant.
It's interesting because, I mean, you look at, I know, I can't remember if it was February or January prior, that was even lower down to closer to the 5 to 6%, if I remember right. But it kind of bounces up and down depending what it is. And so I think it's just a matter of when we make that traffic stop, what they have. I know that out of the, let's see here. Out of the, right here, so out of 16 society crimes we had, which were majority of those were drug crimes, we had 6 of them that had marijuana, majority of them had paraphernalia in there, and then we did have some that had methamphetamine, Xanax, and fentanyl pills that were in the vehicles. So I don't know why that jumped up for this month. I know it kind of does that roller coaster ride throughout. And so for some reason, this was a little higher. I think we've even had up to almost 70% some months where we're pulling a lot of drugs out of cars, but I don't know if it's,
That's Pop Team
Yeah.
related.
what's that?
Pop Team related. I think Pop Team helps with a lot of that, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You got another question?
Good, thanks.
Councilman Wheelock?
I think we just need to help Ada County keep up with the dogs. So we may need one more.
Right. Can't let Napa win, that's for sure.
That's a next week discussion.
All
All right. Any other questions of Chief?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sir? All right, and Fire Chief Tominski is out at a training this week, so he won't be giving his report. And we're going to move on to this proclamation, which is Provider Appreciation Day. So I'm going to read this real quick here. Whereas Child Care Aware of America and other organizations nationwide are recognizing child care providers on this day. And whereas child care has provided a safe, nurturing place for the enrichment and development of millions of children nationwide and is a vital force in our economy. And whereas the pandemic illuminated how indispensable child care providers are for the well-being and economic security of STAR's young children, families, and community. And whereas child care programs, which are mostly small businesses run and staffed predominantly by women, continue to recover from the health and financial hardships stemming from the pandemic to meet the needs of more families. And whereas STAR recognizes that childcare has been and continues to be a lifeline for families, communities, and the economy. As such, it has provided much needed support to providers to help sustain the viability of childcare. And whereas the future depends on the quality of early childhood experiences provided to young children today, support for high-quality childcare represents a worthy commitment to our children's future. And now, therefore, I, Trevor A. Chadwick, Mayor of the City of Star, hereby proclaim May 10, 2024 as Provider Appreciation Day in Star and urge all citizens to recognize child care providers for the important work and how valuable they are for our communities. Adopted this 7th day of May, 2024. So thank you to all of our child care providers here. I know there's never enough for our society out here. So anybody want to say anything or we good? All right. Well, thank you. I got it. Dana, anybody here for them? No? Okay, here, I got it signed right there. The other busy child caring. That's right. We're going to move on to item 5, the consent agenda. And Sean, which ones do we want to take? Which ones did you ask me that we're going to remove?
Mr. Mayor, we need to remove Naismith Commons final plat.
Okay.
And then it sounds like you want to remove the findings of fact for Milled Olive CUP.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilwoman?
I also have some questions about the April 16th minutes, so I'd like to remove that from the
Okay.
agenda. So I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the consent agenda consisting of item 5A, just the approval of claims, 5C, findings of fact, conclusions of law for Stonecrest, Dennis Downs, the conditional use permit, item 5D, findings of fact, conclusion of law for Watson annexation and development agreement. Item 5E, finding of fact, conclusion of law for Star Fire Station number 55. Item 5F, final plat for River Park Phase 2. And item 5G, final plat for Trident Ridge Phase 8.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion, a second by Councilman Nielsen. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hershey. Aye. Wheelock.
Aye.
Salmonson.
Aye.
Nielsen.
Aye.
All right, that motion carries. Thank you. We're gonna move on to item 6, the public hearing for, and we're gonna combine them both, I think, right, Sean? Yeah, the public hearing for the UDC updates, the municipal code updates. We'll have Sean, it is, what is it? 7:46. And we're gonna open the public hearing on this, and Sean is gonna present a few items here for us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor and council, you have before you this evening, before you this evening, municipal code text amendments, including titles 3, title 4, 5, 7, and 8 of the Star Municipal Code. Those include Title 3, Health and Sanitation, Title 4, Public Safety, Title 5, Motor Vehicle and Traffic, Title 7, Building Regulations, and Title 8, the Unified Development Code. These amendments went through the process as set out in our current Unified Development Code for code amendments, including agency notification, legal publishing of the titles to be amended. We also held a city council workshop in November of 2023. And staff has met with builders and developers in the community, and that was on April 22nd of 2024. The agencies that were notified were both in Ada and Canyon County. I did include a one letter in the packet from a developer representative, and also a letter on your desk from Hunter Homes. Both letters were in support of the current amendment proposed. Staff also provided the council with some red lines last week for review. I did hear back from a couple of the council members on some questions and comments, which I included on your desk in front of you. Some red lines with actually green lines are the new revisions that were part of the comments from those individuals. Just a second here.
And were they emailed out too, I think, to them, right?
Yes. Just a second here. Okay. Starting with the Unified Development Code, staff went through each chapter, provided red lines and comments for the public online and also the council. Highlights include public hearing process. The green lines you see before you were comments from one of the council members regarding the neighborhood meetings. So I've modified that per their request. I can just go through these and you guys can stop me as we go. If you have any questions, we can do it at the end. It's up to you guys.
What's the best way for you guys to do this?
Go through and we can ask us.
Let me, how about if I go through the green line that you guys talked about, then I can come back and ask questions on the
Okay.
whole, on the entirety of the Unified Development Code.
All right. You're gonna go through them
There's
then,
not-
Sean?
And there's not many of the green lines. So let me just go through those real fast.
Okay.
There were some just punctuation fixes that we did. We added some fire district approval to temporary street light installation. We added emergency turnaround to the definition for common drives as required by the fire district. Changed the definition of flag lot. So I don't have the numbers. I'm just going through the green lines that are.
Oh, the green line.
Yeah, on the sheet in front of you or up on the board. Public infrastructure, we added police stations to that definition. In chapter 3, clarified the accessory structures in the CBD zone, clarified the convenience stores with fuel operations. We did clarify on a maximum height. It's a 35-foot maximum height requirement in that note 5.
Sean, are these green lines that are not in the printed?
So Sean, there's two different green ones and I printed my own copy of the green one with what you're showing here. The other ones that here is just a municipal code that they have. Hey, Ryan. I'll just have Ryan go make a copy of this one here that's got the green for everybody. And make some for these guys out here too, so they can see it. Two-sided. All right. Yeah, Sean, we're just real quick. It's 7:52. We'll just take a 5-minute recess till Ryan gets back here.
You don't have.
You only got, it's 8:04. We're going to reconvene the public hearing on the code amendment. Sean, you want to start back at the top now, we're all on the same
Yeah,
page.
sorry about that. So now that we have the right overhead with what you have in front of you. So Title 8 Unified Development Code, going through the green lines that were provided by council over the last couple of days. All right. So again, underneath the public hearing process, we added some wording to the neighborhood meeting section.
And are you just going through the green?
Yeah, I'm just
versus
going
the-
through the grams. I apologize for not having page numbers.
Well, so now that we all have this, can we just start, should we just start at the top and go through the changes and not?
Absolutely. You
not
can
pick out
do whatever you guys want.
So do you want the red changes that were already sent or just the green ones that were updated based off our comments?
Well, are we going through the green and then we're going to go back and go through the red?
We're going to go through the green and then whatever questions you guys have, because I've provided this to you a week ago and there's a lot of red in here. So if you guys have specific questions, we can go through them.
I guess what I'm thinking is just logically, if rather than do this in 2 phases, let's just start and go through everything. Red, doesn't matter if it's red.
Okay,
or
I'm
green.
just going to go page by page. You guys let me know if you have any questions. How's that?
That'll work?
Okay.
That's what you want, right? Kevin?
That's what I'm recommending.
Okay.
I mean,
All right.
Yeah, that's fine.
and it's all contiguous.
So chapter 1 is administration. Goes through the administrative decisions process, public hearing process.
Okay, so hang on a second. Are you wanting us to read out the red lines? Is that, what do you want?
No,
I just want to make certain that we're doing the, but,
No, I've read the entirety of
okay,
this,
gotcha.
including the black.
Okay.
So, but what I want to avoid is having 2 separate discussions.
Okay.
You know, one about the green and one about the red, because we have green mixed in with red. So let's just go through this one time, one pass. That's what I'm suggesting.
All right, very good. You got it? Okay, thank you.
So starting with the public hearing, back with the public hearing process. We have several revisions staff suggested and council suggested. updated our public hearing sign requirements.
Yeah, we're making for people that don't realize it online, the lettering bigger. So you can actually see it when you're driving by it. Versus the 2-inch, we're making it 6.
Speaking of online, do we want to up the magnification of this on screen?
There we go.
Yep, thank you.
Article B is the application criteria, which includes the applications for annexations, we've added de-annexations. We don't do very often, but we found that we did one this year. We did not have a process for it. Zoning and rezones, and we've also added vacation of plats.
Then so on Article B on the de-annexation, we put that in there. I mean, it's not common.
The de-annexation follows Idaho State Code.
I didn't even hear you because David.
The de-annexation follows Idaho State Code,
Okay, very good.
specifically Code Section 50-225.
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilwoman?
All right, so I had a question about item, so we're in 1B-1. Okay, so under B, item 6. So in here it says, you know, that the applicant may be responsible for mitigation, you know, additional mitigation.
Yep.
But we're limiting it to the State Highway 16, 2026, and 44. So my question there was, I thought maybe it would be, you know, maybe we should consider adding other roads, like arterials and collectors too. Yeah.
So the reason that we won't add it to this section is this is specifically talking about proportionate shares and added mitigation fees. So the collectors and arterials that you're talking about would fall under ACHD impact fees, which is not part of this section.
Okay, so then I go into, okay, I will look that up in the code that's there now, right?
Yeah, so you understand, this is
6.
proportionate share, which is only state highway. And our police and fire mitigation fees, which we put in place based on residential growth.
Okay,
So that's why the collector and arterials, they don't fall under that, any of that. They fall under ACHD jurisdiction that we don't control
okay.
for that.
Thank you.
That makes sense.
It's a great thought, but not thinking what we can do. We good? Well, no, ask your concern. If you got something, just bring it up. It's okay.
Okay, thank you for your patience. Let me just work through this. So we're in 1B-6, right? Which is under the application criteria for annexation and zoning. And that is just general annexation and zoning, right? But I don't see where it's limited to the proportionate share. Maybe I'm probably missing
So
it. So
let's just
please
read the whole thing. Yeah, applicant may be responsible to participate in reimbursement costs associated with traffic studies in proportionate share and or additional mitigation contributions that may be established with transportation authorities.
So that's the key
Relative to-
right there, and or transportation. So it's not, to me, that reads as it's not just limited to the proportionate share, but maybe,
Well, I think it's limited to what has been established with transportation authorities. And the city of Star has only established with the transportation authority of the Idaho Department of Transportation relative to state highways.
that makes sense.
So the comma after transportation authorities also says relative to traffic signals, access or construction improvements associated with the state highways, right there that they listed. And or with funding of police and fire protection as it relates to residential growth impacts. So that's this whole thing. if you read the whole thing, it just ties into proportionate share.
You know, I think to your point though, like if we did establish something with ACHD, then this section would not read correctly. But there's context behind here that's not listed in the wording.
Yeah.
We might want to reference a specific agreement that we have with the,
Will ACHD play in that arena with us? Because they don't seem to be interested in that.
yeah, probably not, but I mean, if, right?
ACHD already has impact fees and stuff and a whole process associated with that that we don't control, unfortunately. So are you saying then
Yeah, we may want to reference a specific
in the
agreement.
ITD proportionate share?
Yeah.
So just
Somewhere
put
in
Sean,
there.
ITD in front of proportionate share on line 2.
And I think we have an ordinance where it was established that we could reference in here too. That might make it more clear.
Okay,
So is that on number 6? You're talking-
yeah, on number 6. I wrote it down.
Just reference ITD and maybe include the resolution number.
Yeah, resolution. It's a resolution. Yeah. And even the resolution, then include the resolution that we utilize for the mitigation fees too, for the police and fire. So then there's no question.
Thank you.
Does that work?
Yep, thank you. I appreciate that.
You work your way through it.
Yep.
Okay.
Item D discusses the newly added the annexation section, which includes the Idaho Code Section 50-2025 or 225. Zoning certificate compliance is next. This
Just real quick, Sean, I just want to, so I think, didn't you have a question on D? I just want to make sure that Councilwoman understand. I think D, you were talking about, did you make a note on that one?
Yeah, I did make a note and I said, it was about the last sentence and it just states, do not, so decisions to grant or deny any application or exclusion do not require that the council articulate or provide findings justifying its decision.
I think that's right out of.
that wording is right out of Idaho
Yeah,
Code.
that's Idaho. So just so you're
Okay,
aware,
all right.
the reason
It just
it's
seems
listed that
very,
way.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
very
Idaho
vague
code.
to me.
Yeah.
And so if we needed to tighten that up, but if it's in the code, that's how it's written and okay.
Okay. Thank you, Sean.
On item A, under certificate of zoning compliance, we added staff added a process to the building permit review to also review for zoning requirements, including setbacks, specific conditions of approval that might be in a development agreement or in findings of fact. So that's what that next section adds. We also added a fee that will be brought back to you as part of a revised fee schedule. We'll probably get that on next month for you.
Okay. And I'm gonna just put this out there again. If the council has a question, I urge you to stop and ask the
Yeah,
question.
conditional use permits has added some additional language. Again, the administrative design review. This establishes the committee that we're currently, or not establishes, but defines the committee that we're using to potentially include building architects, civil engineers, and building landscape architects in the future as part of our committee.
You have a question? Councilman Wheelock? You gotta turn your button on though.
Next section is regarding the vacations of plat. And again, this is taken directly out of the Idaho Code, section 50-1306A. So basically what this is saying is that we will still bring vacations back before the council, but as the Idaho Code states, it does not have to be a public hearing. It just has to come back to council. So we'd probably put those on the consent agenda. And if there was any specific questions, you could take it off the consent agenda and we can discuss it. And the main thing is that the Idaho code does not require a public hearing on vacational plats. Just review by the council. Next section is Article C, which is surety agreements. And we've just added some language to try to clean up, provide more control over the surety agreements, but also with input from the building community, make those of fair requirements. Any questions on the surety agreements
So let's,
before we go back to you,
well,
sir?
yeah, that whole section right there, let's just talk about, let's talk through that.
Okay.
Let us know, I guess let's just read it a little bit and let's see what it says publicly. It's a lot. There's a lot there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe just a summary of the intent. what
Yeah,
we
the summary,
accomplish.
there you go. Get that out. Great job. Did you get that, Sean? Summary of
So the
intent?
intent of this is to provide for bonding for typically for improvements within a subdivision prior to signing the final plat. And so we've put specific wording in there. And this is typical throughout the valley for other jurisdictions on allowing, and a lot of it has to do with the timing that it takes for the developer or the development to go through the many different agency reviews and signatures. And so in order to move that along, we put in these allowances for bonding. Or actually haven't put them in. We've addressed them and redefined them so they're clearer. The surety has always been in the code, the agreements and allowances for bonding. So they mainly include non-life safety items such as sidewalks and items that not only can be bonded for by ACHD or Highway District 4, but also landscaping and non-life related issues. Where you do have fire district sign off on those to make sure that they are maintained.
So for me to be clear, we're talking about subdivision approving type
For final plats, yeah.
for final plat, not Joe building a fence
Correct.
as in
No.
Correct.
Article 3.
Correct. These are specific to final plats.
And then if you look at D on that, excuse me, we included the city engineer may require increased costs and or additional bids as deemed necessary and may reject unbalanced bids. And this is on the bonds. So staff is reviewing bonds to make sure that if something were to happen, that it's actually going to be covered and be taken care of. Right. And that's why we want to put the city engineer into that.
And that's something
in that
that's something our city engineer specifically does. He
Yep.
reviews the bonds and makes a determination on if they're adequate and accurate. And if not, he'll throw them out and require new ones. Any other questions before we move on?
Any questions on those little areas there? Anybody?
Nope.
Okay. Councilman Wheelock,
I'm good.
you're good? Okay.
Okay, Article D includes implementation provisions. It also goes, and Article E goes into our definitions. We've added some meat to our accessory structure definition, including secondary dwelling units. A better definition of what is an accessory structure less than 200 square feet. If you recall, one of the discussions we had at the workshop was whether to require setbacks for those smaller accessory buildings. We had some discussion from our fire marshal on the pros and cons of having those buildings up against property line or within setbacks and up against property lines and access and things like that. There was a concern from a few of the council members on requiring a setback, because keep in mind those smaller structures typically are not mounted. They're small enough that they can be moved relatively easy. So staff had recommended a 5-foot minimum setback. Now, every property is different size, and so you've got a smaller backyard that's going to be tighter back there, and so some folks might need that additional 5 feet. So staff has just placed in there, rather than a shall be 5 feet, a should be 5 feet to, hopefully promote that setback, but still allow the flexibility. And I think that's what council was wanting, or a couple of council members were wanting that.
I specifically noted the word should and felt like that was acceptable.
And as staff, we'll still push for people. We'll say we recommend a 5-foot setback for safety reasons, but it's a should rather than a shall. Okay. We also provided a build to rent community definition.
So Sean, can I, since I met with you and Ryan on this, can I ask what happened to our discussion? Because this is kind of the opposite of what we landed on.
This is still the definition now. The regulations and restrictions that you had concerns with, we built into the additional residential standards, which are further along. And I'm hoping that answered those questions, but we can get to that in a second, or I can jump down to it right now.
Well, I think even having a definition in here is jeopardy, in that we're calling out a distinction between something that looks one way based on what an owner has decided to do with it. And I'm not sure that that's something that we want to take on as a city.
Can we ask Chris?
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris, are you online? Is he there, Dana?
Basically, I don't want the city of Star to be the first target that a U.S. attorney comes with a Fair Housing Act.
Hey, Chris, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. And I'm gonna have Councilman Nielsen ask his question to you, and have your opinion.
Sure.
So Chris, looking here at A1E1, the definition of a build to rent community, the concern that I have with including a definition and really any provisions around this is that a fair housing challenge may come of this, depending on how we treat this or even how it's perceived. And I don't know that the city of Star wants to be the trial for this in the United States.
Yeah, normally I would recommend avoid being a test case for the country. I think that it really depends. I mean, obviously, the city does have some specific regulations for, apartments or, condos or other kind of multifamily dwellings. And so I think Councilman Nielsen, I think to your point is, does the city want to take on, a single family home development that's a build to rent and then provide specific regulations on that development? And if so, then you need a definition, right? To so everybody knows exactly what the regulations apply to. And then the question is, what kind of regulations do you establish? I do think that you raise a good point with the Fair Housing Act. Cities are not allowed to legislate out affordable housing, out of a community. Some communities, like the Sun Valleys of the world and, whatever, they, in some ways, it's a little hard to have affordable housing. But, in
those
most
are market
cases,
forces, right?
correct.
Not legislation.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's a market driven. As we even closer to home, McCall, they consistently try to get affordable housing built, but because of the cost of construction, the cost of land, and all those things, it's impractical unless you get government grants and those sorts of things. But it's not because the city has done something to legislate it out of town. It's just, like you say, it's a market function that makes it difficult to build.
So, Chris,
so the city just needs to be careful if they're going to do this, that they aren't doing it in a way that it's prohibiting affordable housing from being constructed in the city.
So in conjunction with this, I did meet with Sean and Ryan, and we discussed putting some provisions that are similar to maybe not this definition, but later on in the code, we've got some provisions in here, but making those part of a development agreement so that it's not a legislation, it's an agreement, and it's optional. The property owner doesn't have to sign it, the city doesn't have to sign it, and that can just be, we agree to part ways before it's even constructed. But I think something like that would be a safer approach. I guess that would be my recommendation.
Can I ask a question? Because I'm confused. I'm honestly confused at what you're asking. Because I read this as simply a definition that doesn't prohibit anything, just telling you what a build and rent community is. So I guess I'm not tracking the same as what you're tracking.
Well, we have provisions later on.
Right.
Actually, I have those in front of you on the screen.
Yeah.
If you want to look at those. So those are the.
And we're just providing standards, I think, to a build a rent community if they choose to do that. Community, just like anything else we have.
I
standards.
understood, but you're singling this out and making a class that's different than what has been done before.
But in singling it out, we would single out an apartment and say, we'd like you to keep up your apartment. It's just vertical. I don't see any difference between saying we'd like to keep, if you're going to own the whole thing, we'd like you to keep it up. Isn't that what we're saying?
That's how I
I'm not
read this.
against them coming, as long as they maintain it at the standard that we were trying to have every home, every apartment,
But
every building taken care of.
sure, but the distinction is you've got a different zoning class. There's a different zoning standard for apartments, condominiums, things like that. This is a single family unit. You're treating it differently than all the other single family units based on this definition.
But we're treating it like an apartment complex.
But it isn't apartment complex.
But it is.
No, it's not. It's zoned the same
But-
as a single family.
I
It's
don't,
arbitrary.
Chris, are we at threat of a lawsuit by having this definition in?
I don't know that the definition itself creates the lawsuit, but I think to Councilman Nielsen's point, as you're looking at the guidelines that are on the screen, these are not guidelines that you would require other single family residential communities to follow, right? These are only for single family or projects that are zoned single family residential, right? Whether it's whatever the density is. But if it's a build to rent, then they've got to have an association. They've got to, paint all the buildings, take care of the roofing, the maintenance. They have to have a local management company at all times. Not sure what local means. And all the rentals have to be managed that way. There's no rental signs. So there's a lot of things here that you I think currently do not require of single family developments. And I don't even know if you require them of multifamily developments. That's why I think as I'm listening to what Councilman Nielsen's saying, there's a target here that says your single family development, that's what you're zoned. You're developing it as a multifamily development, kind of, because everything's for rent and it's a single owner. But nobody driving through it is going to know that it's multifamily, right? They're going to drive through it and say, think it's a single family residential.
And Chris,
But-
to that point, we're distinguishing now between use and behavior. Because land use, it's not multifamily, but only behavior.
So how do we
Correct.
protect the city? How do we protect the city and its citizens?
By not having
Yeah,
a definition for this. If there's
No,
things
I
that,
mean, I'm talking outside of, you don't want a definition. I think you have to have a definition. I think we've
Mayor,
been fighting this thing for 4 years. And we got to find it something that's going to be protecting our citizens. Does it
Well,
mean that
look,
we say,
I feel like Sean and Ryan and I, we had a great discussion about this and we landed on,
so is this not anything that you talk about?
we talked about not putting it in the code. Like, this is the opposite of that meeting we had, guys. And I'm surprised by this because what we had worked out is that we would put language like this in a development agreement. And not just for we know ahead of time that it's a build to rent community, but also for the case wherein somebody might come in later and buy up 15 or 20 homes or decide to buy up the whole thing and make a build to rent community. We can do this without putting a target on our back. That's all I'm saying.
However, Mr. Mayor and council member, this is an important issue that we've struggled with a specific development that was brought in.
So why
without
did-
any- Without, let me finish, please. Without any regulations, right? Without a development agreement, without nothing. And for the last 5 years, we've been struggling to figure out what to do with it. And everyone knows where it's at. Everyone's driven by it. We had to go and ask the developer to add specific structural and architectural design standards to the side of them just to break them up because they were all the same. And so that's why we feel you got to have something in the code.
So let's, I guess for the purpose of argument, just take this whole section out for tonight and we'll have to come back and revisit the whole thing. I mean,
Yeah, I think we need to revisit. I mean, I don't.
we need to do a workshop. We need to just sit down
We've
and
had workshops.
I know, a workshop specifically on this for all of us to sit down and talk so we can get on the same page, because I'm not on the same page as Kevin at all. Right? Because of what I've dealt with on the internal side, but I see what you're saying from your side, but I'm not on that same page.
Well,
So I think we need to
have
sit
the
down and
same
talk about it.
goal. It's a matter
know we
of how
do.
we get there.
Right. And so we need to vet that out, and I don't think we have enough time tonight to vet that
don't.
out.
Okay, so we'll remove it. We'll remove the definition and we'll bring it up.
Fair enough?
Yeah, and Mayor, I think that one of the approaches to this, might be to, I mean, in general, I think I'm okay with defining a build to rent community, right? Because it could be done as a conditional use permit in a single family zone. Because in some ways it really is a multifamily project. It just looks like a single family project, if that makes sense. And so it's kind of like, if you want to do that, okay, but we're going to do a conditional use permit. And through the CUP process, you can certainly add conditions. I think like Councilman Nielsen's talking about, whether it's part of a development agreement, which can be a little hard because that development agreement is typically done in zoning. And so you may not know at the time of zoning that it's happening. But if you do a conditional use permit, then you could say, okay, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But here's how we need this regulated. I don't know that we can put anything in the code today that's going to solve the problem that's existed for 4 or 5 years. But I think there's ways to stop this from, or at least maybe stop's not the right word, but to remedy the issues that we're having, so that if there's more of these projects that come to the city, that we're not telling them no, but we're saying, if you want to do it, there's some ways that it needs to happen, and through a CUP process potentially, or maybe some other processes. I think we can get there.
I have one more question. Does that mean, and this is just maybe for my own clarification, if we approve a subdivision and want to protect it from being sold as a unit, we have to put that in the original development agreement to specifically have to come back and change that language if that were the case?
It could be in a DA or in a conditional use permit. I think either of those vehicles would work. I think you have to be a little careful on kind of restricting a sale altogether, just because of constitutional, kind of freedom of contract rights that people have. But I think we can look at that and try to find something that helps. I mean, obviously, I think the goal is we don't want somebody dumping 200 houses on the market all at once. And so I think there's a public policy reason to, kind of work through that and have some, either a staggered approach or something else. I mean, if they're selling the entire thing, it's just a new management company, that's maybe not an issue. But if someone decides we're out of the rental business and now we're just going to sell these houses to whoever wants them, that could be somewhat devastating for everybody else in town that's trying to sell their homes. And all of a sudden they've got 200 competitors all on one day.
And you have two different kinds of products. You got the ones with all the
Correct.
individual lots, and then you have the ones with the single lot with everything on it, like a apartment complex. Right? But with individual houses. So, all right. So we'll do that. Kevin, are you good with that?
Yes, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll remove the definition and then the standards
Then the standards for,
later,
and then
further on
we'll-
things.
We'll have to hammer it out.
Yep.
Okay. Where we at?
Next item is common drives. We added the turnaround for emergency services shall be required
That's what you
on all
asked.
common drives.
Okay.
Staff's also added and updated the event and entertainment center facility, indoor and outdoor.
Okay.
Also updated the live work unit definition. We've addressed flag lots. Again, this is based on council's reluctance to accept the flag lots in smaller subdivisions, but we're still allowing them in larger lot subdivisions because there are times when a flag lot is necessary. The key is that fire district would review it and there'd be emergency turnaround to satisfy them. Staff's also added the multi-use building definition. So this is where we differentiate from a live work unit and a multi-use unit. And again, the way that staff reviews it, the live work is something that you have commercial downstairs typically with residential upstairs. You have access to that residential from inside the building, as opposed to a multi-use building, which will have commercial downstairs and apartments upstairs with separate access points and things like that. And so right now we've been lumping everything with live work. So this just better defines the two.
Yep.
So Mayor Chadwick, questions about this one?
Yep.
So there's a line in here that it shall not have internal access between floors. And I'm wondering if that means just within individual units or like you can't get from one floor. You can't, if the commercial's downstairs, there's nothing internal that can take you upstairs, not even like an elevator or a stairway.
The actual units are separate. So
I wonder if language then that something like between units on separate floors might be more descriptive there, because I wasn't sure if this required a different exterior access on a different level.
you can have like an interior, like elevator bay or internal staircase, but it wouldn't be specifically accessible from that unit downstairs. It would be it could still be downstairs, but it would be a separate access. That makes sense. Separate access.
Okay, so
Yeah.
could we change the language then that says shall not have internal access between units on separate floors?
Between units. Okay.
And just remember, it's could be a single level live work unit.
Well, this is different than live work unit. But
Is that what you're talking about, live work or?
Talking
this is
Oh, you're
multiple
talking
use.
Multiple use?
It-
Okay, I'm sorry.
There's one other challenge with that particular thing, and that is like if we had second floor was maybe warehouse or storage area, and you didn't have access between unit and storage area, or I mean, I'm okay with it with that language. But that's just something that I think might come up.
Well, and again, this, what we're trying to do here is it's with the understanding that I mean, you could still have commercial, office and light industrial on the first and second floor. It's specifically if you have a residential component. So if you look at the sentence before, multi-use structures consisting of both commercial, office, light industrial and residential components shall not have internal access. So it's
okay,
not
between, got it. So between units,
So that's the difference. So you could have a two floor commercial that could have access internally. It's really to separate those
yeah,
residential.
I better understand your intent, but that's not the way it reads.
Okay, so that's what I need help on.
Yeah, so the between units on separate floors kind of helps, but there's also a distinction. Actually that probably does resolve it, because you're still comparing that with the residential, and then we're saying between units on separate floors. I think that's fine.
Okay, thank you. And then public infrastructure, we added fire and police station.
Yes.
Okay.
Chapter 3, the zoning standards. Just added some language to the central business district purpose statement. We're changing the name of C1 to neighborhood commercial district instead of business district. C2, general commercial district instead of general business district. And we've updated several of the specific zoning district uses. When we added that multi-use building as a conditional use permit. Got rid of lagoon and institution because I could never figure out what those were.
Yeah.
Sorry, what is the white barn?
Which one? What's that?
It wouldn't fall under our definition as a multiple use building.
No.
No, that's what we just went through. The barn over here.
So it'd be an event/entertainment facility, right?
Under the dimensional standards, the only thing we've added is, and again, this was discussion we had at our workshop, was to allow for a 60-foot height in the CBD, the C2, the mixed use, and the industrial.
Well, that's only what you
Again,
were.
that would, if you look at note 5, that further explains that 35-foot maximum height requirement in those zones unless a height exception is approved by council through a conditional use permit or planned use development. We've always had the height exception in the code, so we're not really changing everything. We're just adding that maximum of 60 feet to that height, to the grid right there.
Yeah, to me, if you put in the maximum 60 feet, they're going to come asking for 70.
Well, but maximum 60, then you just tell them no.
Anything
So-
over 60 would require a variance. And the reason I think it's important to do this is in the public perception, anytime someone asks for a variance or a waiver, it's automatically assumed that you're asking for something that was not intended. So this way, by recognizing it, but still giving council the power to, on a case-by-case basis, review and approve these. I think that's what staff was recommending.
And it's only, the way I read it, you only get that exception through a CUP or PUD.
Right.
Right? It's just not a given.
Correct.
And you decide whether or not they get it up to that height.
And the reason when staff picked 60 is by working with the fire department to make sure they had the apparatus that would handle that. 60 seemed like it.
Yeah.
You can go higher. You can go 70. But what is it?
5, I believe.
But total.
I think they told us, I think they told us 70.
So, yeah, Mr. Mayor and council. So to address the over 60, once you hit 70 feet, it requires additional requirements from the fire district, such as wider drive aisles, additional hydrant locations. It throws additional requirements on the development, and most people are not going to want to agree to those requirements.
So Kevin's on board if they're wider drive aisles. He'll go
Wider drive aisles.
Oh, I
let's be honest.
forgot. Yeah. So I mean,
That's my language.
Sounds like we're making everything 60 feet then.
Yeah, lead with that.
Okay, yeah, Councilwoman?
Yeah, Mayor Chadwick, if we're done with, are we done with that?
If you
Okay,
have
I
questions.
apologize. Can I go back to the zoning district?
Hmm?
So one item, the gas, the convenience store with or without fuel under LI, so that states as a C.
It'd be a conditional use permit. It
Yep.
wouldn't be a permit.
But then if you go down to the gas with or without a convenience store under LI, it's permitted. So,
Yeah, probably need to change them both to be Cs.
yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
Good catch.
Is that it?
Yep, that was it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. John, next. Any further questions?
Yeah, Mayor.
Yep.
So
Councilman Nielsen?
there's also underneath the numbered notes, there's a notes conditions E. And we're back to the setbacks on accessory structures. And this one places any accessory structure to comply with the residential setback. But then carves out that little bit there for the 200 square feet. And so you've got a shall, and then you've got a should. And does the should let you override the shall, or does the shall always rule?
Okay, let's look at that. So
And I'd be in favor of just striking that section entirely.
any accessory structure over 200 feet requires a building permit, which means it does require setback compliance. So the intent was just to restate that the less than 200 square feet should maintain the 5-foot.
Right,
Be
but
consistent with the other one.
the sentence before has a shall and then uses
So
accessory
we could put
structures.
all new residential.
If,
So all new
Set.
residential structures shall comply with residential setbacks, and all new accessory structures, maybe accessory structures over 200 square feet, we could add that. Want to do that?
if you don't have it have a should or a shall and try and strike it, you're 7.5 feet because it's still a permitted building.
Right.
It has to meet whatever zone it's in setbacks.
So yeah, I guess if you take out and accessory, so you say all new residential structures, because that would be residential or accessory residential, right? So just take out and accessory, and then I think we're good there.
But we don't have anywhere else in the code that says that accessory structures have to meet the setbacks. That's why we're putting it here. So accessory structures.
Well,
have-
but your first sentence overrides your second sentence, and I'm
Right.
sure that's not your intent, based on what we already talked about for setbacks.
I think you just change accessory structure over 200 feet in that first sentence.
Makes,
And then the second sentence, anything less than 200 feet shall maintain a minimum of 5 feet.
should.
That-
I get that, but then if I want to build a shed that's more than 200 feet, now I've got to comply with the residential residential setback
You always have.
versus an accessory setback. Because it's bigger, yeah. But those residential setbacks, part of the intent of those is structure against structure. And you don't necessarily have that with an accessory. Right? So here again, I've got a certain amount of property, but now I can't use it because we're applying a residential setback
Which we should,
to a non-residential structure.
right, because over
But
200
if you
square
have a
feet,
shop-
you're gonna have footings. It's gonna be a permanent structure.
Right.
Has to meet the setbacks of the residential zone, always has, unless you guys want to have specific setbacks for just
I just said
accessory
there was
structure.
nothing in here that specified that, but it always has.
Correct.
Yes, I mean that, yes, any structure requiring a building permit has to meet the residential setbacks of the zone.
I think we're simply saying that any accessory structure that's less than 200 square feet, a shed that someone puts in their yard, should maintain a 5-foot minimum setback from all property lines. Is basically what we're adding to something that's already there. Because this other one says if the 200-foot sheds, the small ones, would have to comply with residential setbacks. So then we're moving them all back 10 feet. And it does exactly what you're saying, is you can't use all of your yard for a smaller shed.
Right.
But this, to me, the way it reads is saying that anything less than 200 square feet should maintain a 5 minimum setback. You're going to use more of your yard. Anything over 200 square feet that has the footings and all that stuff is going to have to comply with the residential setback.
But that's not what it says. So if we make it say that, then I think we're good.
So explain it, say it again.
So for me, it says all new residential and accessory structures over 200 square feet within any zoning district shall comply with the residential setback.
So then you have to say over 200 square feet because the shall is going to override the should.
Well, that's what I said. That's what I'm saying. That's where I threw in over 200 square feet on that first sentence.
Got it.
And then any accessory structure less than 200 square feet should maintain a minimum.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
That takes care of what I think you're,
I think that hits your intent then.
all right.
It should.
It should.
It shall.
Yeah. all right. Moving on to Article B, additional residential
Didn't dare
district
say shall.
standards. This section is just building up our residential standards, which applies to all zones and all residential building permits. Also includes the minimum side and rear elevation standards that council's been wanting.
And we're going to come back. We're going to come back and revisit 5. Is that what I understand?
We're going to take, so any questions up to this point on section 1, section 2?
Item 5 of section 1.
Additional
Go-
landscape buffers.
go
may
back
also be
up.
required. That's all struck out.
Yeah.
Explain that one, please and nicely.
What's that?
Why we struck out number 5.
It was something that staff had added to the amendment. And it was questioned by the building community as to what it really meant. I guess my initial intention was thinking back to some of the subdivisions where we required additional side yard landscaping because we were reducing or waiving the side yard setbacks. Since we're no longer allowing those waivers.
But as we do developments, the additional landscape buffers, as we have residents come in and want buffer from their property specifically, even like up on Beacon Light and Pollard, that neighbor that was just to the north of that property. We didn't change anything but added trees and required lower houses. Wouldn't that additional landscaping buffers fit in that definition without?
Good, yeah.
So
And you can always.
if we put that back in and just leave in additional landscape buffers with those specific council options, in my opinion, it would be worth having.
It says may, it doesn't say shall, so.
Or should.
Could.
This is a may, this is not a should.
Yeah.
So you're gonna add that back to shall?
There
Hey,
should,
you know what would be nice would be like a section on landscaping.
be nice. Oh, wait, we have.
Let's get through what we have.
That's a whole nother night.
All right, we will add that back in.
Yep.
So while you're on that page, number 2, I don't know if I'm misreading this, but the second sentence there, nowhere within the development shall any fewer than 5 different architectural sizes or styles and or floor plans be located adjacent to each other.
Should be similar. Right?
Well,
Similar architectural shall be located adjacent to it.
any
each other.
fewer than 5. So
So you get 5 in a row that are different versus having back to back to back things or mirrored.
is
Yeah,
that
the intent's to have 5 completely different
right?
units next to each other, different architectural.
But I think what this sentence says is that you have to have at least 5 of the same right next to each other.
That's not what we're trying to say.
Yeah,
So
we,
similar. Yep.
we've got a double negative in there, the nowhere and the fewer. So I think it should be nowhere within the development shall any single architectural style and or floor plan be located adjacent to each other.
Well, within 5 units.
Or within 5 units of
Within
each
5
other.
units of each other. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
That was our out loud.
Thanks from the audience too.
How do you deal with the across the street version though?
That's it. Yeah, it's adjacent.
Mr. Mayor, Sean, if I recall on this one, we were going to remove floor plans from that.
We were.
Okay.
Can we
And-
define an
and just-
architectural style then?
That, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we toured several places where there's the same floor plan is right next to the other one, and you wouldn't even know it's the same floor plan. So, Mr. Mayor, the tour we did at Black Cat and Chinden, we walked through residences that were the exact same floor plan next to each other, and if you looked at the outside features of those homes, you would have never known it was the same floor plan. So our intent is not to restrict the floor plan. Our intent is to restrict the architectural structure of the building.
Well, I like that. I agree with that. And I'm not sure that saying architectural style gets us there.
So maybe we need to,
Because an
Beef
architectural
that up.
style could be
Exterior.
a scalloped siding
no, true.
versus a, vertical siding. versus
Absolutely.
whatever.
What about exterior elevations?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of things that go into making the same floor plan look different. And maybe we just need to say that like you can't look at them and tell that it's the same floor plan. Maybe that's as simple as it needs to be, but I think architectural style just leaves it too open for interpretation. It doesn't capture our intent.
Okay. Staff will work on that.
Exterior elevations is an easy way of saying it.
Okay.
And then then on the top of this next one, Kevin, Nielsen, A, B, and C, we'll change that architectural style to reflect what we just talked about too.
Yeah, and maybe the term distinction or distinct or unique needs to creep into that.
And then, so item 5 is the one that's coming out.
Yes, we'll remove item 5 altogether.
For a future workshop.
If we go back up to item 4,
Yes.
we're taking out the council approval. So council required, district approved would be preferable wording in there.
So say that again, please.
Council required and district approved.
You want to add council back in?
Yep.
I mean, this is the city code. I don't think our code should abdicate the performance of the council to a district, but it should facilitate cooperation, right? And then the same thing is on the next page, F4.
Consistent language.
Consistent language, correct.
Any other questions on residential standards?
No. Do you have any questions? Okay, anybody? Okay. A3C1,
Commercial and office districts.
I have a question.
Yeah, item
Okay.
8, E.
Mhm.
All the commercial buildings fronting State Street, Star Road, Highway 16 and 2026 shall be designed with architectural elements facing the roadways. Is there any reason that we need to say whether it's the front or the back of the building? Does it matter?
I don't think so. I think if anything that's facing that, whatever's facing the front of the street frontage is what we
The
want.
street frontage.
What we're trying to avoid is some more buildings like it over by Ridley's, where you've got those ugly doors facing our beautiful State Street, because all the architecture is on the inside.
Thinking of one on Star Road, but yes.
And there's a lot of examples of that. So that was the intent of adding that.
Okay.
The design review is really good at fleshing those out now.
Yeah, Councilwoman Salison.
So regarding the title of this, I'm confused. Does it include, is it all commercial, like all of it, mixed use and CBD? Or is that, so it's kind of a summary of all of the commercial office, mixed use, anything commercial would.
This
So
is just the commercial and office districts, and then
so-
the next
Just
section.
section C1, right?
Yeah, the next section is for CBD, and then the next one is for
Sean, is it
multiple.
C2, C1?
C2, say again?
The commercial is at C2 and C1s.
Yes.
So that, it's just changed that
C2
commercial to say C2/C1 in office districts. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And that alleviates your question.
Yeah. So then do we need to add item E then, right?
Say again?
So then we'll need to add item E for commercial buildings along State Street, Star Road, into the CBD and MU sections.
Yeah, it's item F actually over there on the
It's already in there.
CBD.
Oh, yep, there it is. And what about,
And then it's item L, I think, in mixed use right there.
yep, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions on those pages there?
Consistency with number 4.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Consistency, or we already had that, didn't we?
Yeah.
Number 4, okay. I think our other ones might have that too, so let's make sure they're consistent on the irrigation and drainage filing.
Item 3C, 2C, so in the CBD. So new development on Main Street and Star Road, sorry, new development on Main Street and Star Road, generally south of State Street. I think we should add, instead of generally south, change that to between Highway 44 and Main.
I actually think we should just strike generally south of State Street
Okay.
because we have some north of, or let's see, if I'm gonna-
Well, because.
south of State Street.
Yeah,
No,
well, it
because
seems,
we do, because our CBD goes north and south of. So we'll just strike
It's
that.
not just south.
The new
right, so
development on
it's
States.
along Star Road, we have CBD, right? And to me, the sentence here reads as, so it, yeah, includes transition, compatible mix of lower intensity commercial retail.
So it's just saying
Or,
it-
yeah, to me,
any new development on Main Street and Star Road.
that's all good.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
Strike out that generally south. We're good.
Yep.
Okay?
Sorry, I'm tired.
No, I get it. You're fine.
Hang in there. Any other questions on Article D?
E as in
D,
echo?
D.
Oh, D is in David. Okay.
Now we're on E. Again, we're just being consistent through the different zoning
Yep.
designations. All right, chapter 4. So we added a definition of building permits.
Can you talk into your microphone?
Yeah, we've added a definition to building permits in 84A6.
Yep.
To better define.
Okay.
Under fencing. Stating that all open fencing shall be limited to wrought iron or open rail fencing. There was a question on what is open rail fencing, so or what materials could be considered in open rail fencing. It could be anything from vinyl to treated wood to, I guess, metal.
So we're saying in here then that we're not allowing vinyl free rail fencing anymore?
No, that's not what we're intending to say.
It says all open vision fencing shall be limited to wrought iron or metal/wood open rail
Well,
fencing.
I just
only.
added that. We probably should take that out and just, I think the open rail fencing is self-explanatory. The only thing we're really prohibiting is the chain link fencing.
Yes, okay.
Ryan Morgan, would you like to address grading? 84A12.
I would be happy to address grading.
If there's any questions, I guess.
Yeah. First of all, the intent was, there was confusion about, we said that anything over 1,000 cubic yards, or basically we said anything that had to have a grading permit. And then we say a little bit later that if it's over 1,000 cubic feet or 1,000 cubic yards, we changed that to put the 1,000 cubic yards and clarify that stuff less than that didn't necessarily need the early grading permit. And don't see it in here. Sean, did we change that from the 1,000 to the 500 like we did?
Yeah,
That's
line
good.
one.
Yeah, the first
Oh, there it
line.
is. Yep. So we reduced the 1,000 cubic yards to 500 cubic yards. Just for most homes, that's not going to matter. It just gives us a little bit more control over some grading activities.
We also added, or any disturbance in a hillside property.
Yeah.
The one thing I want us to change though is on fourth line up from the bottom on that. It says early grading permits may be issued at the request of the applicant and review and approval of city staff. It needs to say city engineer. Because I don't think any city staff should be reviewing and approving a grading permit until
Okay.
you've seen it. Right?
I mean, that would include me. I'd really, you're
Right. I
taking
don't
away
want,
my
I
right
don't
to
want
approve it.
Kevin Nielsen to approve that either.
Fair enough. I tried to leave it a little more generic, but if you want engineer there, we can put engineer there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, staff
I'm still
takes in
gonna move
everything.
dirt around my yard.
That's
It's not
gonna
500.
probably be 500 yards over a year. Just saying, I have acreage, so.
you have acreage.
Okay.
Can I clarify that city engineer or his staff? Just
Or
in
his
case,
staff?
his city engineer or their staff. So that means the assistant city engineer.
Well, that's a city engineer. I mean.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
It's,
Yeah.
it's all,
He's a city engineer too, so, yeah.
I just don't want to hold somebody up if something
no.
happens to me. And
Vacations for you.
The other thing that we did was we took the information from the code, or from the comp plan, where we talk about 25% or greater hillsides, and we incorporated that language into the code to give us more teeth and give council more teeth as to what's going to be required there.
Yeah, and item 3 here is the grading of property shall take into consideration adjacent roadways and properties. The focus on state highways, arterials, and collective construction shall not result in sidewalks not matching center lines of existing roadways. This is from a lesson we learned,
Yep.
obviously down the street with the Mountain Mike's Plaza. And it needed to be addressed and put in here so people understand that they have to bring up those properties.
Since we're on this grading issue, how do we avoid people pre-grading their ground, re-leveling a mountain before they come in with an application? Is there a way to adjust that so that people don't change the whole structure before they come in?
As long as they're within city limits, that's what the 500 cubic yards does. If they're outside city limits,
We have no control.
there's not a whole lot that we can do.
Just if, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we don't have any jurisdiction at that point.
however, Brian, doesn't the county have grading permit requirement?
The both Ada and Cannon County absolutely have grading
Yeah.
permit requirements
So
as
they
well.
can-
So
So they can't re-level a mountain and then come in and say, well, this is what we
Not
planned
without a grading permit by
by Ada County.
Ada County, Canyon County.
Cannon County's requirements are similar in nature to ours. I'm not as familiar with Ada County's. I can look into that to see if what their 25% and greater requirements would be. I know that 10% to 25 are
Would the
very
county
similar.
recognize any of the things that we would prefer
So-
happen before that?
Yeah, so one thing we could do if that is a concern is when we're doing our city of impact agreement with the counties, is we can have them adopt specific requirements. And I think what we would do is we would put that in our subdivision ordinance. That way they would recognize that, and then they would have the ability to say, you can't wipe out a hillside and then try to annex it into the city.
Yeah, we've had that whole mountain moved and then tried to fix it in the front of Hillsdale and then it went away, so it doesn't,
Coming back.
well, maybe coming back. I can't hear about that yet.
Well, you can hear us coming back.
So item G, I need to ask you a question. Roof drains shall not be daylight on sidewalks included as main access pathways to building entrances.
Wait, you don't get that?
I don't know what is this engineer term or what is this?
Basically, it means we don't want the roof drains to splash down on the sidewalks in front of a main store entrance.
So what's a daylight mean? What does that mean?
Daylighting is when a pipe comes out of the ground and finds daylight.
Okay. So that's, okay, all right.
Or should it say shall not drain light,
Wanted to make sure
daylight instead of shall not?
that was,
I didn't get it either.
yeah.
Get rid of the word be in that sentence helps.
Shall not daylight.
There you
Get rid of B. Okay.
Yep.
I thought it
Mr.
was-
Mayor, while you're discussing unclear sentences, if you go up to 3 above that, the second sentence isn't really a sentence.
With focus on state highways, arterials and collectors?
Yeah.
Property should be a comma there after properties, comma, with a focus.
Okay, properties, comma, with.
That
Okay,
makes more sense. Thank you.
Engineers and grammar.
Happens when you let engineers write the code.
Give us numbers, please.
Yeah, any other questions for the city engineer?
well, let's just, yeah. So that's, is he part of that steep areas over 25% slope or is that you?
That's him. So J is the hillside development. That's where that 25%, we brought that from the comprehensive
From our
plan.
comprehensive plan
to
into
the
our
code.
code.
Yep.
Yeah.
On number 5 there, the word stope, I think should be slope.
Oh, yep, you're right. No, unless that's an engineering term.
Daylight stope.
Daylight stope. Okay,
That was,
I think his new name is Ryan Daylight Morgan.
that's awesome.
I've been called worse.
Everything else make all right on there, on the next page on 1 through 5? Okay.
Okay.
Sean, go ahead.
next section is sidewalks and parkways. Updated our standards from the 6 foot to the 8 foot for the parkway strips, parkways and planter strips.
Okay,
Travel, next item is traveling sleeping quarters. I believe this was added per our police chief's comments. The 72
Question on
hour.
that.
Councilman Nielsen has a question, Chief, I think.
So you can stay in it for a period of 72 hours. Where?
So, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Nielsen, so this came up because we had an issue, a resident here in Star that had people living out of their RV in their backyard. And so we discussed this for quite a bit of how do we accomplish people not doing that and causing issues with the neighbors that live living there. So obviously it can't be parked. Well, I guess it could be parked on the street for 72 hours. If after that, then it's got to move because it can't be stored on a public street. And so I guess to answer your question, I guess it would be on their property somewhere. I mean, HOA is going to have to step in on things that are against HOA rules. But for this purpose, anywhere on their property, they can stay in that RV for 72 hours or those 3 days. And after that, they have to move along and they can't. And the reason why I put the 6-month period in there, the discussion was, our fear was that they move out for a day and then come back for the next 72 hours. So they just put a time period in there to show that it wasn't consistent. These people kept using their RV to stay there.
So consistent then with the parking, which allows 72 hours, you could also live in it for those same 72 hours.
Right. Yeah.
So Star doesn't need an RV park.
Yeah.
It's the whole town.
No, Middleton took care of that.
So, Mr. Mayor, Chief, so if I just want to draw attention to the last part of that, though. Unless within the approved campground or recreational vehicle park or as allowed in the temporary use section. So if we've issued a temporary use permit, I mean, that's kind of the whole purpose here is that we identify where these are at. So they can't be on the road. They can't just be in a parking lot for 72 hours. Unless they're within one of these areas or we have approved them with a temporary use permit, then this is not allowed.
Well, I like your intent, but the way I read this code, they're allowed on the street for 72 hours.
No, and he's
I don't
agreeing.
think so.
He's not disagreeing with that. He's just saying that if it's going to be longer than
Well,
72
he
hours.
just said not on the road.
It's not on the road. It
Not in-
specifically says for longer than 72 hours within a 6-month period, unless you are within an approved campground, recreational vehicle park, or as
Yeah, got
allowed.
it. But for those 72 hours on the road, it's
72
fine.
hours could be on the road, yes.
Yes, anywhere in the city is what it
Okay.
says.
That is not our intent.
Well, but I guess
That's what
I
it
think
says.
it is the intent because you're going to have people coming and visiting that are going to bring their campers. They're going to stop in front of your house on the road and stay there. You see it happening already. I mean, you're not going to kick them off the road. They're not going to be parking in their driveways because half the driveways we build anymore are not deep enough.
Well, I think my understanding of the intent for the 72 hours is for people getting ready or coming back from a trip and to give them time to do those kind of things, not to make the town an RV park for 72-hour visits.
Well, you're going to have, I mean, it happens. It already does. It's been
I
happening.
get that, but what we're doing in here is we're specifically now allowing it. So as long as we're all conscientiously doing that, but I'm hearing that we're not.
No, the whole intent, again, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Nielsen, the whole intent on this was we ran into a problem that we couldn't solve with the neighbors complaining about a person living in the RV in the backyard of somebody's house. So the whole intent, and I don't know if there's a better way to word it, the whole intent for this section was to resolve that from not happening, to where if we have a neighbor saying, hey, they've lived out of there for, longer than 72-hour period, then we can actually go and start dealing with that, whether we cite them for this and send it to the prosecutor's office to get them removed from there and start citing them, to have some fee penalties to it. But the intent's not to allow them to park on the road, but I see where you're coming from, that this technically, and I don't know if any other city around us has an ordinance that states that they can't. I mean, I don't know what our camping ordinance within the city of Star, if that would come into place to where that would allow that not to happen. Because it is a public street and you obviously can't throw a tent out on a public street and sleep there. So I don't know if we want to review it's been a while since I reviewed the camping ordinance on that, but.
Can an HOA enforce the road?
Chris, is that you?
Yeah, sorry, it is me. My kids are louder than I am, so you probably heard that. But so the city does have parking ordinances, and those have been in existence for a long time. And so typically, somebody could park their RV out in front of their house. A lot of times it's while they're getting ready to leave to go camping or come back from camping, but sometimes they have visitors that come and might park for a weekend in front of their home. But the city's general parking regulations are going to control, just the way they've always existed, are going to control whether, an RV can be in a certain place or trucks and trailers and all those things. And so what we're talking about here was intended to be in addition to, what we already had in the code. So just, if you look at this section, it used to say that they couldn't be anywhere for more than 2 weeks. And so we're shortening that down to 72 hours within a 6-month period. That's the only change. It's gone from a 2-week time frame that could have been 2 weeks. You leave for a week, come back, park for 2 weeks, leave for a week or even a day. And we're putting tighter restrictions on that. Now, we could go further and have something else in the code and in the, the parking ordinance that talks specifically about how we would regulate RV parking in town generally. But like, I think trailers and fifth wheels, I think they're, I know at least trailers are in the city's parking ordinance. But we've taken the existing code and we're changing that 2-week period to a 72-hour period within 6 months to accommodate what the chief was talking about. There may be more that we need to do, but that was the intent of this change.
Okay. Are we good with this?
So is it our job to say, okay, if they're coming for 72 hours of parking in front of a house, can they hook up to their city sewer?
No, that's the sewer system won't allow them to do that.
I understand that, but if they have a clean out that they can dump into, is that something we're gonna have a problem with?
So, Mr. Wheelock, there are regulations that the sewer district can turn around and enforce based on just that. So those are illegal regardless.
That's what I was hoping.
Yes. I can speak to that. The sewer district has sections of code that we have adopted that there are fines and we can literally go in and shut their water off and refuse them service if we ever catch them doing that.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilman Nielsen, are we good with it?
Totally good with it.
Okay. Moving on.
Thanks, Zach. Okay, mailboxes, just goes, explains that, mailboxes and mailbox clusters, required to be covered and lit and are subject to the postmaster's, review and approval. Next item is the required parking space of off-street parking spaces. Staff has added some standards to the entertainment facilities. And also updated the storage facility. Article C is the temporary use section. We've just added Christmas tree lots to the same section as the fireworks stands.
On item L there, can we add words, applicant may stay in an RV on the lot during the transition of the duration of the use?
Yes, we can further define the intent of that.
On the lot. That's longer than 72 hours, chief.
As approved through a temporary use.
Mayor Chadwick?
Councilwoman?
So I believe that in our current code now, there's another section for the Christmas tree that references Christmas trees, and it was in, let's see, 8-4C-5.
Those have been stricken.
Oh, that's, so we're,
We combined that into this section.
It would have been on this master page, probably, not on this one.
okay. Okay.
Next,
Then
Article
solved.
E, common open space site amenity requirements. We've added under qualified site amenities, community gardens.
We also put in there about safety flotation devices on there as well, the ponds
With devices spelled right.
with devices spelled correctly.
Chapter 5 is the specific use standards. We've added we've added a section for the event and entertainment facilities, a model home office and amenity administrative permit, and the multi-use building standards. Also updated the drive-through establishments, including the requirement that they receive a conditional use permit approval from the council. And an item
And item F is an add.
item F, we've added this due to the concerns we had in the community over the location of the McDonald's so close to residential uses. We've added this section to further protect existing residential developments along our Central Business District corridor, with additional distances to those drive-throughs.
Sean, is that multifamily residential and single family residential uses?
It says residential, so that goes to both of them. I mean, the intent is both, any residential use.
Okay, thank you.
Also added us, and this is to a lot of our sections with when it has to do with compatibility with existing residential, is to add some lighting standards to allow us to go back after lights have been installed in parking lots. If there is additional glare that we didn't account for, that we can go back and require them to shield those lights.
Would the not having a drive-through near a live work on the end of that building would not be allowed because of the residential component above it?
I don't know if we'd ever see a live work with a about a new live work building with through downstairs.
Live work is not in a residential zone, though.
Well, they could be.
Yeah, it could.
Well, so then
It's residential use.
Well,
What's your example? Is your example the Dutch Brothers adjacent to the?
no, he's talking about an actual live work unit where the
Yeah.
bottom level is, let's say you take Chris
They want
Todd's
to put a coffee house on the end
corner.
of that live work.
with a drive-through.
Yeah, I don't know if I
The
mean,
residential.
keeping in mind that live works come to the council for conditional use permit approval. I don't know if you guys would approve a drive-through and a live work.
I think we should be really specific about how we use the term use. Because land use goes, it runs with the land, right? It's the zone. Now, within a zone, you may have a residential dwelling, but that doesn't mean that that property is residential use. And so, to your point, Sean, we may have somebody living in a live work, but we don't build live work locations on residential use land. And so the way this is written, that we don't build it adjacent to residential use, means the zoning, not what somebody is doing in that zoning.
Yep.
Residential zone rather than residential use.
Well, I think we've got to be consistent with how we use use, because land use, that term is really important in the business that we conduct.
I'm just wondering if we get rid of use and just call it residential district.
Yeah,
We're very specific on where those live works can be, like you stated.
Or residential zone.
The way I look at that is, take for example, the area on Star Road or Main Street where you we've rezoned some of those properties currently to a commercial district.
Yep.
But they're adjacent to a existing residential district or a residential use. So you could still have, you do have some commercial zoned or office zoned property that's still being used for residential. That's what we're
Right,
trying
But it's not
to,
residential use.
it is.
It is not. The use, it runs with the land, not with what you're doing with the land. So you can say zoning instead maybe, but this is really important in the build
is.
to rent conversation also.
Yeah.
Like use has a very specific term in what we're doing here. And I'm not trying to be like educational. I'm trying to just develop a thought that it's occurring to me, and I don't know that there's clarity because it seems like we're using the term use in two different ways.
So
I
when we
think
have a piece of-
typically a use is what you would see in your table of uses. Like you have your zoning, your zoning tables, and then you have all the uses that are identified in there, and whether they're permitted uses or non-permitted uses or conditional uses. That's typically how I think of a use. Recognizing that there may be different ways to look at it, but you have your zoning district, right? So you've got your residential, we've talked about some of central business district, light commercial, light industrial. I mean, those are your zones. Typically your uses are, what's kind of permitted to be done within that zone. That's how I look at it. And so we may, for clarification's sake, we need to think about, as we're talking about, kind of how we're using those terms. But I look at that table of uses, and so, it's a line in that table, and then it says how it can be, whether it's a permitted use, conditionally permitted use, non-permitted use in those specific zones that's how I think through it. But that may be different from everybody else is looking at it.
No, I think I may be the one that's looking at it differently. So I appreciate that explanation. And I think based on what you're saying, Sean, yes, you're using use
Yeah, that's
the
how,
way Chris was doing.
that's how staff's interpreted, because again, we've got properties all over the city that might be zoned, let's say zoned office, but they've got a residential use on them. They don't have a commercial use on them.
Yeah.
So that's how I've always interpreted.
So under that definition, I think that this may be too restrictive. It's like in the case of live work, you've got those speakers on the ground floor, and the sound typically doesn't travel up very much. Like if you got second floor apartment buildings or whatever, I mean, there may just need to be a little more flexibility in council discretion, rather than to just block out and say all residential use.
On a live work, like you said, that's going to be a CUP anyway, and you do have discretion at that point. for
Well,
that.
so is this drive-through is also going to be conditional. You guys are going to be
Right.
reviewing and improving these.
This is simply saying in our code that you can't have it.
Right, so would that require a variance or a waiver even in a CUP?
I mean, they could request one, but they have to show a hardship. I don't know if a depth of a
I think you
Well,
can
what
get
I'm
rid of,
saying is I don't think the council has discretion. Like if you're saying because of the CUP, the council's going to have more discretion and flexibility. I don't think we do. Outside of that waiver.
okay, so what if we got rid of the word use and just left it as district? To me, that seems simple.
because
Because,
there's uses that are not in the district that's my concern is we all up and down State Street, we've got residential uses that are in non-residential districts.
so, but what, I mean, aren't we, if our comprehensive plan is saying that that's going to change, if that use changes, are we going to leave everything hostage then on that? That's right next
Comp
to
plan's
it?
just a guide. It's the zoning district is the law. And so if you've got.
So in the CBD though, we can have all kinds of residential uses, but now we're blocking out all kinds of commercial uses in favor of the residential, where the CBD, the intent is the opposite. We want to foster both, but we
So would you
really
say-
need to foster the commercial.
R1 through R10, I mean, do you have to clarify then what we're intending to do? For like an R1 to R10 zone, or?
I'm not seeing the problem here with this.
I
the way
really don't
this is
see it
written.
either, but it's getting talked a lot.
I think that's the reason we have the use or the district is to protect the existing residential uses that could be next to a commercial use. That's the intent. Sometimes
Would it
they're
be
not.
possible to just require that a drive-through requires a conditional use permit and then you can take it on a case-by-case basis?
It does. That's what we have in here. So that's why I stated that the council reviews these on a case-by-case basis.
But I think but see what we have, here's an issue we have is right down here in the core of downtown. We have properties that are right up next to these residential components here that we've had folks come in and ask start talking about putting in a drive-through establishment.
Mhm.
Before we even we just establish a rule that says that you can't have the speakers and stuff within 100 feet of these residential units before we waste everybody's time and money on coming into a public hearing for you just to turn them down.
Which is what we have.
And so we're trying to establish that rule now
Prevent that.
to prevent
Coming before
The
you,
goal is
so-
to define it so that the building community understands what we're looking for so that they don't waste their time.
business owner or anybody on
Anybody.
Got it.
purchasing things. That's
So
the
the, so
whole
the,
thing.
and so to further define, that's why I put at the end, unless it's approved through a planned unit development or a development agreement, because you could have the case of like Norterra, which is a large, deep, mixed use development that you can put a drive-through in without affecting the residents that are 500 feet to the north of it.
Okay.
That was,
I appreciate the discussion. I know it's late.
Yeah.
But understanding intent and what's this is helpful.
Are we good with it then?
I'm
Or
good.
do we need, okay, all right, thank you. All right, next.
you want to ask him what he's.
We talked about the features of lighting, right? Sean, you already talked about the features of lighting?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, we've defining and putting standards for for entertainment facilities,
Okay,
for model home, office and amenities. Again, our new section for the multi-use building. Additions to the secondary dwelling unit standards.
Mayor Chadwick.
yes, sir. Councilman Nielsen.
Item 5 on 8541 C5, antennas used for any type of public safety. Can we define public safety or define which antennas we actually refer to? Because it sounds to me like we're trying to regulate Chief Hessing and Fire Chief.
We're trying to regulate them, you mean?
Not
Is that
trying
what
to
you're saying?
regulate.
Well, they have a certificate of zoning compliance, just meaning that these guys are reviewing it before they go install it. Make sure it complies with our code, correct? Huh?
Yeah, we're not restricting it.
We're
We're
not
just
restricting them.
having a review process in place.
So we're limiting it just to public safety, or are we trying to address people with ham radios that are trying to construct something in their backyard?
I think ham radios are exempt from the codes.
Okay, so this is specific to
This is
police, fire.
specific to public, to fire or police.
Okay, thanks.
Chapter 6 is the subdivision regulations. And we've just added some clarification. Cleaned up our timeframes for submittals of final plats versus preliminary plats. Tightened up the common shared driveway definition. flag lots. Okay, that's all I had for the Unified Development Code. Ryan Field's going to go through the municipal code sections 3 through 7. You have another handout. I think this one should take.
Is this one got the green in it too? Say again?
Three also.
Oh, perfect.
Yep. Great.
No, you did not. Yes. What? Yeah, Councilman Neal, or what's his name? Hershey has not been well, so he's probably gonna leave.
I'd excuse him.
Yeah.
What about swine? Are you pro swine also? Okay.
That's all right.
You
No problem.
sound great. Feel better.
All right. Are we, Mr. Mayor,
ahead.
shall we proceed?
Yes, sir.
Or- Okay, just wanted to make sure. All right, so we're going to go through, let's start first, Title III, Health and Sanitation definitions. We define continuous noise there. And
You did.
any noise that lasts for 30 minutes or longer, any sound that can be detected by a person using his or her unaided hearing faculties. A lot of this we've gone through a little bit before. 323 prohibited acts, noises. We've struck out a couple things there, but really put or an offensive noise is a noise that is plainly audible. Is really the big change there. We struck under specific noises enumerated animal noises. Those are going to be brought up in an additional section. So we're removing them from that section. And then we're adding under the construction piece, section C there, we're adding that when this happens in a construction zone, a failure to comply with these requirements may result in a stop work order. That was not previously there. We're striking D, demolition, and replacing with motor vehicle mechanic work. It's not really demolition.
Ryan, do you feel, sorry, Mayor Chadwick,
Go ahead.
do you feel like these changes give you the ability to address a lot of the homeowner complaints about radios and things like that blare all day long on construction sites?
Yes, and especially with, as we go to L there, with the radio piece that's there, we then added the failure to comply with that result in the stop work order as well. So yes, we specifically included that for the specific radio issue I think we're probably talking about.
So this right here allows us to have some teeth at the code enforcement perspective versus the challenge that we have with a peace officer's peace cannot be disturbed, where you have to have a person that signs a ticket with the police officers in order for it to get enforced. This allows us to do a stop work order and catch their attention.
Yep.
On it.
Absolutely. So with so not to move too quickly, but any questions on that before we move into the public safety? That's really, I think, where a lot of this is going to be. All right, so chickens. From a farm animal definition, we're going to strike chickens and just specifically call out roosters. So we're calling roosters a farm animal, and then we are going to then discuss them throughout here. So this is where we moved the habitual barking or noise making that we struck earlier. So basically same as what we currently have, just moved it into a different portion. And then we're kind of cleaning up the prohibited there. That kind of adding, and this is really, so now we're going to get into here some of the language that came from the recommendations from the Sheriff's Department's legal counsel.
And before we get too far down in that
Yes.
section, going to back to the title,
Yes.
because of the section we're about to talk about, habitual barking or noise making is only a minor part of this section. So I
That is
wonder
correct.
if we should just title it animal nuisances or include and nuisances.
Okay. So, and
What do you want to
so
call it?
instead of public safety and nuisance?
Talking about the title or?
4-4-1.
Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
Okay.
Nuisances. You want to add nuisances is what you're saying, right, Councilman Nielsen?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
majority of this section is not about barking or noise making. It's just,
That's easy. You bet. We'll do that.
or add and nuisances.
And nuisance.
Yeah,
Yep.
habitual barking, comma, noise making and nuisances.
And nuisance. Like it. Okay. And so, again,
Nuances.
I'm sorry, was there an
No,
comment?
you're good.
So, and I will ask, I know Chief's back there, so hopefully if he sees anything else in here, I do have one item that we're gonna correct from him, but if he sees anything else in here that's missing, hopefully he'll speak up and let us know there. So we're just basically trying to better define this, and add, because before our definitions were not very clear.
And to clarify, this did come from the legal counsel at the sheriff's office.
That is correct.
Correct.
And the nice thing is too, you all recently allowed us to enter into a contract with the Humane Society. So really, a lot of this, when it comes to animals, is all under the direction of the Humane Society. And that has been extremely helpful, not only from a code enforcement perspective at the city, but also from a law enforcement perspective as well. They're no longer dealing with these calls.
So does that take us to number 6? Is that,
Yes.
okay? So I got a question about that.
Okay.
So one of the nuisances listed in here is smell, right? I'm just looking for where exactly that was. So if you look up under 4E,
Okay.
it says an excessive amount of animal feces, blah, blah, it's yada, yada, which is of such quantity as to generate odors off the premises or of the animal owner. And the method of addressing that is impoundment, but I don't believe we have a way to impound farm animals.
That's a good question.
Chief, do you know about that?
Um,
And I know that the Humane Society will look at a chicken as a farm animal regardless of our definition.
Actually, the Humane Society took care of chickens before, so that's not an issue with them.
Perfect. If that's,
So you're aware.
They actually have been enforcing our current ordinance that does not allow chickens. They are currently,
got it. So good, that provision's there. I'm good on that.
but it does bring up a good point. So if you think we need to clarify that, we'll certainly do some work on the language
So if you can smell my cows
or
manure,
swine.
they can be impounded?
Right farm.
Your property's different, Councilman Wheeler.
I'm just
No, it really is.
verifying so that we know what we're talking about. I'm in a subdivision, but
Okay.
absolutely I have more property than.
I'll make a note there that we just might want to look at that language.
Yeah, your amount of property, your
I'm just trying to.
history
protect
on the
my
property,
rights and
that makes all the difference.
But it-
Remind me if I get
Okay,
defensive.
so let me ask a question. I need to
You'll
ask a
get
question.
defensive.
Chief. So on number 6, it says at the end, it says this fee shall be paid at the time of animal redemption and these fees shall be remitted to Ada County. That's not right. It'd be remitted to the Humane Society. I mean, why does Ada County get the money in our city. If it's going to be remitted, it gets remitted to the city of Star. I'm not giving it to the county commissioners.
I think you're right. It probably, at the time, I
Right.
think when this was done, we had not entered into that agreement. And maybe this was just how the language currently read for county instances, I think. So you're right. We need to update that.
The city of Star, yeah.
I
Yeah,
think.
Mayor, to that whole question, it talks about the animal control shelter charges a fee that's set by resolution of the county commissioners. Is that?
Oh, yeah, so we
does the
need to change
Humane
that all.
Society- Yeah, so I think if it's the Humane Society, that's who we should reference. I'm guessing they're the ones that set the fees, or does the city set fees?
Well,
Uh,
we'll have to adopt the fees that are set with them and us both, I believe. Correct?
Okay,
Jacob?
yeah, so it looks like we
So-
just need to
So-
make sure this is clear that we're working with the Humane Society and not the Ada County Animal Shelter.
So then you're saying that the process is that, so the animal gets impounded, taken, goes to the pound, and then they, the owner would go there and they're paying the city to get the animal out?
So pay the Humane Society
Right, right.
to get the animal.
Yeah, so maybe for a recommendation, so I had a note here, so like the animal control shelter shall be entitled to an impoundment fee, and the fee shall be submitted directly to the animal control shelter. Isn't that what number 6 is?
No, because Ada County collects fees off of this through the animal control shelter. So the Idaho Humane, this is how I have it written. The Idaho Humane Society shall charge a fee set up by resolution of the city of Star, receiving an animal into custody. The fee shall be paid at the time of animal redemption. These fees shall be remitted to the city of Star.
Okay.
That's how.
The animal control agency in 5 is listed 3 times and should be the Humane Society
Yeah, we
all
need to
3
just update
times.
all of it throughout the whole thing.
Well,
Or just have a definition of animal control agency because it may change. Or
that's where I was going.
That might
Is
get
if it
bad.
changes.
Fair enough.
Just like our-
Currently it should be.
Kidding.
Well, I think the whole section kind of needs clean. What next in here you have the fee schedule, spelled out, and that seems like, I mean, we'd be updating that whenever they change it. So
Well,
I think,
and it's on the fee
I think
schedule.
we
as
probably will
amended.
strike that because we have the contract in place already
yeah,
that lists that. So I think we need to strike the fee schedule. And then, but I want to come back to the Animal Control Agency because we're under contract today with the Humane Society, but when that contract runs out, it could be ABC company. I mean, do we want to leave it as like Sean said, the current Animal Control Agency, or do we want to change it to Humane Society? And then when we change contracts, come back and change it to whomever, if we change contracts.
Or
we
just say
could
the contracted animal control.
Yeah, designated
Okay.
animal control.
Okay.
Contracted, whatever.
Okay. Easy enough. All right, Jennifer, you had some other comments there. We're going to update shelter and all that with the proper language.
Yeah.
Are you okay
yep.
with that? Okay. Perfect. All right, so D, Councilman Wheelock, here's your exception for your cows,
Where you at?
for your livestock.
On next page.
E. And again, this is current code. We just are reordering some of these because we've added some sections, but that's all current.
All right.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry, Sean. Yes.
You talking to your microphones, everybody.
You want to reference the Right to Farm Act on there?
I think that would be a good way to write this section. Is rather than try to come up with our own, just say that the exception is with anything that falls under the Right to Farm Act. Because I think I get a little hung up on sounds made in facilities, licensed and in compliance. I'm like, that gets complex.
Okay, no, I like that. That's what we'll do. We will make that happen. And then we move on to 444, which is the maintenance of farm animals within the city. You see under the paragraph 1 there, for bees, initially bees were kind of all lumped into here. We're going to remove bees and create our own bee section, like buzz bee section. And so we're doing that. Again, updating definition here, no farm animals except laying chickens, and striking bees because we're going to create them in their own section. So here's where we're going to then state that with the exception of laying chickens, if you are going to have livestock within the city limits on a piece of property that is not grandfathered, then here are the requirements that you need to meet in order to have that. And then I do want to come in.
What do we mean by grandfathered? I didn't see that in here.
So previously in the code, it does state that, and it may not be printed out on here, the code states that property that was currently in use at the time that the ordinance was passed, the specific ordinance was passed, and it gives the date in our current code, is okay to use that. And then it also states if that use goes vacant for a period of 1 year, then that grandfathering goes away. That is currently listed in our code today.
Jennifer has a question?
Yep, thank you. So I'm a little confused. So we have chickens in this section and we're saying that they're a farm animal, but then, a chapter go,
We're saying they're not a farm animal.
well, the title, maintenance of farm animals within city, right?
Right.
And then we're talking about chickens in here.
We're not. It says no
Taking
farm
them-
animals except lanes shall be kept in residential zones. So basically, this whole section here talks about everything except chickens.
Well, and I kind of with Jennifer on this because previously under the definition of farm animal, we accepted chickens. Here, we're saying a chicken is a farm animal and it's being accepted. So I think I don't know that we need to say anything about chickens here because previously we took it out of the definition of farm animal.
Okay.
We add it back in late.
This
Okay.
makes it like we're adding it back in and then accepting it.
So what if
See what
we,
you're saying?
so what if we titled it maintenance of farm animals and chickens or and hens
Then you're gonna have to
within the
rewrite
city?
the whole chicken section because the whole chicken section is tied to this section.
And really, let's
Right.
talk, a chicken's a farm animal. So, right?
It is.
So rather than trying to work around it, let's just say chicken, and I don't know,
Like,
I
where
get
would you
what
like
you're
to say
trying to
chickens?
do, but I don't know if this is it.
Look, what we talked about in the workshop was designating like the gender, calling out a rooster
Right.
or a hen, because both roosters and hens are chickens. And so our previous definition is a little funny. We accepted them and then we included them. And so to the mayor's point, I don't want to have to rewrite the whole section, but if we just recognize that a chicken's a farm animal and we're having exceptions for hens, I think that helps us.
Laying hen chickens,
Laying hens.
laying hens.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got that,
Huh?
Ryan?
All right, so I'm going to go to, what I'm hearing is I'm going to add back chicken into the definition of farm animal, whereas right now we're taking it out and including rooster. And then we're going to put into this section the laying hens. Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
a rooster could also apply to a pheasant.
I'm sorry.
A rooster could also be a pheasant or some other type of,
That's true. Yeah.
So-
Could be. You're right. Do I need to clarify?
well, we need to, what we're doing is we're singling out a species, right?
Okay.
So I think if we stick with the species where it's general and where we want to get specific, we call out roosters and hens of that species.
Okay.
Okay,
I don't
Okay.
care about the family or the phyla or the genus.
Okay. All right. And I know, Councilman Wheelock, we do need to fix this one because it does say that the swine's not allowed, but we are going to add that.
well, we're gonna have a discussion.
I'm sorry, I'm proposing to add the 4-H language into this. So,
And before we have a discussion, I want to understand, Councilman Wheelock. Are you trying to preserve this capability on your property? Or are you trying to enable this across our city to have raising swine?
I'm trying to let those people that have the ability and the ground and acreage within our city limits to be able to raise a 4-H or FFA animal for fair purposes so that they can learn to work.
Can we state that? I mean, can we include that?
That's what this states.
Except for
Does it
youth.
say FFA?
Absolutely.
Mine
in
too.
mine too.
All right.
Says swine of any kind are not allowed in the Star City limits except for youth programs, including FFA and 4-H. In these circumstances, all the following shall apply. The question that came up earlier was the maximum of 1 swine per half acre. I know that Councilman Nielsen has an opinion on that because he was a swine guy growing up, correct?
Yeah, but that is correct, but so is Councilman Wheelock, and
Well, right.
I'm not the only authority here, but I do have an opinion for sure. One of the challenges I see in this section, outside of my opinion about raising swine in the municipality, is back to our ordinance about nuisances. Chickens and pigs in particular are two of the most smelly animals that exist. Maybe turkeys would be the only other one I would include. And so even a pig just sitting there, not having pooped, still smells like a pig. And so if we've got neighbors who now can smell a pig, we've created a scenario where under the nuisance law, that pig can now be impounded. And I think we got to be really,
I disagree with that because you've already given them the right to farm act.
that isn't giving them the right to farm act.
Isn't that what we just talked about
The
10
right
minutes ago?
The right to farm act does not apply. My understanding of it, no, it does not apply in a municipality. Like what it applies to is farmland that's adjacent to development.
I am in the city.
I understand that, but you have been farming there since before you were in the city. That's the right to farm act.
that's my understanding as well.
But these new neighborhoods that are being built, the right to farm act does not apply within those neighborhoods. Just to the farmers that are adjacent to it, because they start complaining about the smell of pigs and fertilizer being sprayed and all those kind of things.
So somebody moves into Main Street on an acre lot and hasn't lived here, but has an acre lot.
Mhm.
I would suggest that they could have 2 pigs and raise them for 4-H purposes, even in our central business district within that 180-day range.
Yeah, I get that's what you're proposing. What I'm saying here is that the right to farm act doesn't guarantee them that right.
I'm good. I'm clarified on that now. Let's move forward.
Okay.
I still think that that should be a right within our city, whether they've been here or not.
So do we need an exclusion to the odor nuisance?
If it makes you happier, yes.
Well, I'm just saying we're creating a problem. You say that 4-H kids can have it.
Creating a problem.
Yeah.
So we
I
got
do.
on here, so on item C on that, it says for purposes of odor control, daily cleaning of the area is required on the swine.
Yep.
I get it. Pigs stink, so do cows, so do horses. They all stink at some function. But if you only have 2 on the acre, I guess I can't imagine it being that pungent.
A
Oh, it is.
pig is going to be in a small area in that half acre.
Yep.
It's not a big area.
Right.
And do we have half acre lots available within the CBD?
But an
But this is
acre
not
could
gonna
be
be-
bought on Main Street.
It's not just a half acre. It could be anywhere in the city. I mean, we have approved 1 acre lots. We've approved half acre lots. Zach's
And
Chief's
HOAs will
house
take
is a
care
half
of most
acre.
of those.
Right. In a subdivision, his HOA won't allow it. This is just simply saying those that are not in a subdivision with an HOA have the opportunity to do that.
That's one of the benefits. I'm seeing the 180 days. Let's it have a resting period for 180 days also. So that there is a piece from that odor. You and I both know that that odor is not available immediately upon the pig's arrival to the property.
That is true.
So you're talking about probably a 2-month period, if that,
Yep.
and only on a specific problem.
We're asking for challenges. Now, likely, we're not gonna have that many people that take advantage of this, and so I think they'd probably be few, but
You hear people all the time say, I want a small town rural feel.
mhm.
This is part of that.
Right until they
With
have
its
their
own
backyard
smells.
wedding, and they're out there trying to barbecue, and the wind shifts just right, and I'll tell you,
And the smell of money.
and I don't care if you're picking the poop up daily, where are you gonna put the poop? And this is creating a challenge, and I'm not gonna say we shouldn't do it. I'm recommending that you don't. But we're creating a challenge that, look, I did a quick Google search. I can't find a city in the United States that has an ordinance that allows anything other than a mini or a pet pig. But municipal farming of livestock is,
Well, this one won't get us sued. We can try it.
yeah,
So let me ask this, what if we, and I'm just throwing this out there, what if there was some wording in here? Because we do have larger lots that are in our, Sean, keep me honest here, our rural residential designation, which in that does allow ag use.
You preferring like Stonebriar, for example?
So that, or we have some properties in the south of the river. Stonebriar, yes, we have properties in the south of the river that that are designated that. So what if the designation of the property that was a half acre or an acre, what if it had a specific zoning tied to
Then
it?
you're taking away stuff like his, which is not an RR.
I think you do it by acre. I think you do it by acreage. You have a,
I don't think you're taking it away, because again, you're grandfathered and there's the Right to Farm Act, right? So Councilman Wheelock is protected in
But
his
not if I
property.
don't have pigs continually on the property.
Well, that's only under one provision. The right to farm, I think, it gives you the continuance. Because you've been there all,
as long as you're farming it somehow, I think you've got cows, you're
That'll always be the case.
agriculture.
so I do like that approach, because one thing that does is it gives everybody who's moving in there an understanding that this is allowed. But I can tell you right now, if my neighbor wanted to start raising pigs, I'm gonna have a problem with it. And I love pigs, but I'm not gonna live next to pigs.
Well, and that's an HOA issue where you're at.
Well, be that as it may. Like, I'm not gonna choose to move into a neighborhood that's separated by only a half acre where there's pigs being raised.
Well, we're gonna agree to disagree then.
So what are my
So
marching orders?
I think it's not a half acre. I don't think you give it, I think it's gotta be 1 acre lots.
Okay,
1 acre with 2 pigs is fine
Two
with me.
pigs.
what about the surrounding area?
What about it?
Well, if you've got a 1 acre lot and you've got 5,000 square foot houses surrounding
What,
that.
one acre, yeah, that's a really good point. Like,
But 1 acre, you can contain that swine within the middle of the property or something, and away from setbacks, away from the side yards. I'm
yeah.
Just throwing out
there's
some stuff.
25-foot setback in our ordinance, yeah.
Yep.
And I think as long as that's in like an allowed use in a designated zone, then I can support that. But it'd be very similar. I mean, it's horses, cows, those kind of things need to be allowed uses in those zones.
We do allow them already on here. It's the pig is the only thing that wasn't allowed.
But we're not distinguishing, currently, we're not distinguishing zones.
No,
We are not.
we're distinguishing by.
What's in front
So-
of now, we're not distinguishing.
So
zones.
where do we stand?
That does make me a little nervous, like allowing it in the CBD area though.
But it's an already allowed use.
Yeah.
It's already a house. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to take out every person's ability to farm down here, down Main Street.
No, you're going to take out the
They're
ability to
already-
have a pig.
Which I disagree with.
To add a pig to
Yes,
their farm.
I don't see an issue with 2 pigs, man.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to go eat
Well-
bacon
well-
when we're done
well,
because I'm
then
done with
Can we
it.
just, then can we just leave it as is? And then I don't know if we're.
But
going-
as is means you can't have them.
Well, we'll leave it what you have here.
Okay.
And then
Well-
I don't know if we're gonna,
Well, we're
Vote
not
on
going to vote
anything
tonight.
tonight, so
Maximum of 2
think about
swine
it.
per 1 acre. I think you changed a half acre to 1 acre.
Okay.
Because a half acre makes your lots even smaller, makes it even more of a challenge to what Councilman Nielsen's talking about. You leave it at 1 acre minimum lot size. If you need to say up here that you need to have them 50 foot from the fence line for pigs, I mean, do that. Make it go a little bit further away for a pig specific issue. Right?
okay,
And like, I think that's great, but like I said, as long as it's in a designated zoning area, then I can be in support of it. Otherwise, I'll vote against it.
So what do you mean designated zoning area? What does that mean to
There's,
you?
there's no,
I'm trying to understand that one.
rural residential.
Right, pick the zone and make it an allowed.
Well, it already is allowed in our rural residential, isn't it?
In rural res, yes.
But we're talking, we have R1 zones that have 1 acre lots.
We have CBD.
And you have CBD that has 1 acre lots. But actually, they're already zoned R1.
Well, yeah, most of those are not zoned CBD, they're zoned R1.
They're zoned R1s down here
Until we rezone them to the
until they
CBD.
get rezoned.
Well, then I guess I would recommend a provision of not just an amortized, or sorry, an average lot size, because in those, you can have an R1, but the houses are actually just on a quarter acre.
Well, right, but we're saying here, that's why it says maximum of 2 swine per 1 acre. You got
Or 1
1
acre. Of actual lot size. Not just I have a 1 acre lot, but it's actually only a half acre because the whole subdivision's rated R1.
So just reword that says that property has to be 1 acre or larger
Okay.
to accommodate the pig.
Are you talking about the entire lot or
Yes.
the entire lot minus the
No, the entire
house
lot,
and the
the
entire
1
lot?
acre
Okay,
lot.
all right.
Gross size.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we'll bring it back and look at
I
that.
will work on the verbiage on the language on that.
I will tell you, I want no roosters in this town.
Except the pheasant thing,
I
right?
hate roosters, chickens. Because we have roosters are only allowed on parcels greater than 5 acres in size and should be kept at a distance of 100 feet from any adjacent residential use, really? You're keeping a rooster 100 feet away? I don't think that's happening.
I know 5 acres, but we're gonna allow pigs.
I will allow a pig all day. Then a rooster that freaking crows at 5 in the morning.
So strike 5 then, no roosters. That's what I'm hearing.
I don't think you should do rooster. I mean, we're talking about laying hens. Don't convolute it with anything with a rooster being involved.
4-H kids who raise specific roosters.
Pete's
Come on,
sake.
serious. Look, if we're enabling this stuff,
All right, then put roosters in. I don't care. Then I'm gonna pass the phone calls to you guys if you're gonna put roosters in on that, because
right
we're not
now-
gonna get calls on pigs.
Right now, we have them on
So,
5 acres or larger. You don't even
I
want,
know.
is that what you're saying? You don't
I
want?
don't think you do roosters. I'm just telling you, you're creating a problem. I haven't seen kids raise roosters in a long time.
Okay, well, moving on then. We have the introduction of our permit for the laying hens, and we have a number of hens based on square footage. So most of our lots are going to fall under Section A of 12,000 square feet or less. They can have 3 hens. And then it goes up from there.
I think that annual fee does not need to be in here though, because that needs to be, that just
Oh.
needs to be set.
I just put that in there
Take
just
that
so
out.
you could see what the annual fee would be, but we won't have a number actually in the code.
Fee would be established at your actual cost of doing business.
I guess I just wanted to show that we weren't going to charge them $100 for a permit.
Can we add some language in here around on number 6 of providing proof of conformance and having the proper structure and setbacks
So,
in order to get a permit?
yes, we're talking about having a permit process. So that would include a inspection, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess to Councilman Nielsen's point, are there setback requirements or even soundproofing requirements? I don't live next to chickens, but I have friends that do, and their neighbors were kind enough to put the chickens way away from their own house, but they're really close to the neighbor's house.
Right.
And so whenever they lay
You got a
eggs, they
rooster,
get-
don't they?
No, there's no rooster. It's just
Some
hens,
hens are,
but they're very
some
loud
hens are
when they lay
plenty
eggs.
loud.
And so anyway, I just didn't know if that was a consideration or if you can just have hens and they can just kind of, there's just a coop, or if the city is, looking at setbacks away from neighboring property or any kind of a, soundproofing structure that they're kept in or anything like that as part of that permit process.
Yeah, the permit does have, and I will present the permit again. But it does have specific requirements on there, distance away from everything and the requirements for the coop and those items. So I'll present that and we can make sure and review those on there.
I
But
do
yes, that
think
is
you
part of
put-
that.
Going back to Council Nielsen's thing, I think we word this though too about that, like a site plan kind of a deal, basically is what he's talking about, is create a site plan, and put some rules in there about how far away from property line or whatever you got to.
That'd be part of that permit process.
Well, I know, but if you put it in here, then that allows them to know what it
Yeah, we'll have the standards in here.
Got that. I'll make sure that's all added in there.
And I'd recommend that we also have a permit for the 4-H and FFA hogs.
What'd you say? Hogs?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you said dogs. Like, where are we going with dogs?
This town is going to the hogs,
Going for
Trevor.
the pig.
Only if you're going to approve it.
I would agree with that.
I'll deny all of them.
Yeah, well, just put that in there and that with a site plan and everything.
All right, I've
How
got
about the
that.
roosters?
Your site plan?
Right. Can we move on from animals or do we have?
Well,
some-
hang on. So on the bottom of the
discussion?
chickens, for purposes of odor control, all animals shall require daily cleaning, and then all animal waste and other associate runoff shall be retained within the subject property. We need to make certain that it stays on their property and doesn't run off into a neighbor's yard. As chicken crap.
Required to, that's part of the requirement
Right.
today. You can't have your runoff go into somebody else's yard.
But if,
So,
I'm just making sure
Yeah.
everybody understands that's in there specifically for that.
And again, a
So,
site plan and a review would
Yeah.
take care of that.
Okay, next.
all right, good on animals? Okay, so we'll get into, this is the stuff where, that Chief wants to have. I'm gonna give you a handout here real quick. So the reason for the purpose of the handout is my oversight. And I did not get 492 updated. I don't know how I missed it, but I did not get it updated the way that Chief would like it to be updated. So basically, we're proposing, well, first of all, let me back up. Under definitions, right now we have street. We're going to add public street. And then public street shall include alleys, lanes, courts, boulevards, public ways, public squares, public places, sidewalks. That definition and suggestion also came to us from the Ada County Sheriff's Office Legal Counsel. And then what we'd like to do under section 492 is replace it with the handout that I just gave you. And that also comes from language strictly from the Sheriff's Office. That will then allow more teeth, more clarity for our Sheriff's Department as they are enforcing basically open containers in public places. And certainly, Chief, if you have any additional comments on there.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. So what this does for us is, I know back in November of 21, I think is when we actually adopted 492 and 493, and it's always been kind of tough to figure out the wording on that, see how we as law enforcement and STAR, how we, I guess, how we charge those. So what I did is I actually found this new, what I proposed, that we change 492 and 493 and put them together as one, as you see in this, in that handout I gave you, and call it just 492, because it includes both possession of alcohol and also consumption and possession. So it actually adds both of them together rather than having it separate. And then on top of that, it allows for us to, part of the problem we run into, as the mayor knows, sometimes we have issues of new ordinance that we have. The prosecutor's office is hesitant if they haven't seen somebody else that's prosecuted it before, because it hasn't been vetted. Well, this is the city of Boise, which we borrowed this from, has been using this code essentially for 10 years. And so it's been vetted that they can enforce it. And so I think our prosecutor's office will be more apt to enforce this as it's worded here. It does give better clarity on exactly what a public place is, as you can read there underneath definitions. And then I know that one of the issues going to come in place is it does say as a public place is a park. I know part of why this came into place is we wanted or it was we allowed to have alcohol at some of the city parks, but there are some exceptions to that. So my thought on that is under section C of that handout, you see exceptions, and we can put something in wording saying within a Star City Park, as long as not within 75 feet of a skate park, 75 feet of a playground, or 200 feet of an 18 or younger event. If we want to do something along those lines, but that at least gives us, I think, the wording and the clarity on that allows us to better have teeth to actually charge people for any type of alcohol consumption or possession in the city of Star.
So Chief, we did, initially, we were going to put those exceptions you just gave in a separate section and call it alcoholic beverages within the city park system. Would you prefer then that becomes under C, we put those in there as exceptions under C, or would you prefer we list it as a separate section?
I think we just get rid of 495 and put it underneath all 492.
Okay.
And have that as an exception. If that's something we want to do, to have an exception for that, I think that makes it more simplified.
Mayor Chadwick.
Yes, sir.
So part of this ordinance from Boise talks about, the very last line says, as long as such possession or consumption does not occur on or in the Boise River. So if we don't address the discrepancy of that with our city park that's along the river, I think that may create a challenge. And my understanding is that's was the primary use case for why we adopted this to allow it in the parks, was so that a former councilman could enjoy that down by the river.
Well, I think, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Nielsen, I think this is actually talking about people who are floating the Boise River. So if you're on the Boise River or swimming in it, you can't have alcohol. I think that's what it's addressing here. It's not talking about alcohol on the on the banks. It's actually talking about if you're floating the Boise River, you can't have alcohol.
I think you cross out all of
Just
that.
going to wonder if we needed to do that.
Yeah, I mean, pursuant to a valid special city event permit issued by the city. I think you get rid of the stuff, provided that the alcohol beverage is held in opaque plastic containers, and then cross out everything else. I don't know why it matters if it's labeled or not. What does that matter? It doesn't. But get rid of everything else and just say that you need to have it in an opaque plastic container so you know what's in there.
Well, it might matter in terms of like glass.
You what? I'm sorry.
Well, if it's in a glass container, then we've got breakage and
Well, it says opaque plastic container.
right.
Yeah, we leave that in there.
Oh, I thought you were suggesting to take it out because you didn't know why.
No, just the word after the opaque plastic container, take out that and the rest of it. The word that and everything else all the way down through it.
So no red Solo cups.
No red Solo cups, white ones. Clear plastic, clear opaque.
Opaque ones. Okay, I like that. Chief, you okay with that?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And do we need to give definition to what is an 18 or younger event? Like I don't know, is hometown celebration an 18 or younger event?
It is, but I don't know if we have, I mean,
Mr. Mayor, I think the reason why we put that in there is if you have like soccer games going on or baseball games, those type of things that are for actually kids 18 or younger that are playing in those, we didn't want a bunch of alcohol around the kids. So I don't know if we could, I know that the hometown celebration, absolutely, we want kids there and that's the funnest part about that. But I don't know if that, and I agree, we should probably have a better, maybe better language than we have in there. But the whole intent with that 200 feet was for specific sports, you know, kids doing sports, not having parents be around drinking a bunch of alcohol.
well, we're crossing out 495 and not even using that, right? And going into this other one,
We're
or?
going to add that to, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, we're going to add those exceptions under C on the handout that
Okay.
that was provided.
I'd be okay with crossing it out entirely, but that's just me.
That's what I did. It pretty much I mean, that whole thing is pretty much this, in my opinion.
Well, the problem is if you get rid of 495 totally, then there's no drinking in the parks whatsoever, which I'm fine
Well-
with, but
Oh, I see what you're saying.
because 495 is the exception to be able to have alcohol in parks. So that's why that was in there. If you just go with 492, how it's worded in the handout that I gave you, then it would eliminate any alcohol consumption or possession of alcohol in the city parks.
Does
Did we
Boise have the exception for the parks? Because I specifically recalled during that hearing where we added it, that like other parks all around the city do this. But I'm not seeing that in the Boise section here.
So, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Nielsen, I don't know exactly about Boise. I know Eagle allows, I believe they allow it at their parks, but I don't know if the city of Boise does. I don't think they do.
Except with that special event permit.
Correct.
Could we add something to the effect of under 18-year-old sporting events? If we're going to use it in our parks, that would not allowed at under 18-year-old sporting events, which would allow an adult softball game to have that if they're interested, but not at the kids' soccer games or the kids' baseball games.
It's not a sporting event.
So
It's already 75-foot radius. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's got its own exception.
So, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Wheelock, I think that works. I know the reason, again, this came up is because people like to have a drink at the Riverwalk Park. Maybe if you want to put an exception, except for the Riverwalk Park in the city of Star, and all the other parks can't have alcohol. I don't know. It's just an idea that you could put that in there if you wanted to, but I know that eliminates people at the 4th of July hometown celebration having it at Hunters Creek. But
Well, we could do a special permit for that for hometown.
yes, and that's correct.
So you've heard what we've said, wordsmith that.
I will.
Let's look at it later.
You
will.
understood that?
You mean at 10:30, we're not really that
I was,
We're not
I
that
was reading
sharp.
Your mind there, Mr. Mayor.
Just
So I
fall
will
asleep
wordsmith
like-
that so that it can come back. We added a new definition under motor vehicle and traffic of overnight parking. So on city property, the period from 10 PM to 6 AM or 12 hours of continuous duration. That is the definition of overnight parking. So we've added that. We struck the extended parking prohibited and then added the section that's in there, 72 hours or longer. We added some definition in there. And again, no overnight parking of vehicles is permitted on city property unless otherwise designated.
Or if it's a neighboring property to your own, that'd be a thing.
My goodness.
In case I need to park the crane across the street.
I think we're gonna have to take our poor guests here out to dinner later, so.
And then if that's okay, I'll move on into building regulations. I think that's really going to be pretty simple. We are going to propose that we add section 718, and that we actually adopt the International Fire Code into our code.
We're going to spell it correctly, though.
Oh, we are? Oh, yeah, we should do that. That'd be good.
Sorry.
Let's spell it correctly. It's sixes. It's all about the intent, right? And then we're going to add 715 and the adoption of heat detectors in the garages. And we've had conversation about that and the benefits of those. We proposed this to members of our building community, and they were in support of that as well.
It's becoming a national trend, so we're
Yeah.
just.
Yeah. And then,
You guys know what that does, by the way? The heat detectors in the garages?
Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
perfect. If it's okay, I'll move on to 716 electrical code. Currently, our electrical code is a little outdated. My understanding on the history of that is we had an electrical inspector right around the time that the city became a city that put this into code. And basically it overrides current building codes. So basically what we're suggesting is that we're going to take out this section that says wiring, commercial, educational, institutional, and industrial electrical should be wired as follows. And instead, by taking that out, it will allow the existing code to determine how buildings should be wired. And so as an example, we've had a couple different buildings here in town where this code has increased the cost and some of the other things there. By taking this out, now the current code will determine how that building is wired, and that will allow the builder to determine how they want to build it based upon the code that's in place. And I believe, then again, we're just going to adopt the International Fire Code. So that takes us through all of those items. I think I have my marching orders. John and I will get back, compare notes, and then bring this back. Yes, sir.
Mayor Chadwick, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilman Nielsen.
So I had proposed a couple of additions.
Yes.
What happened to those?
I
I mean, we didn't discuss them in our council workshop either, so.
We didn't. So there's a couple things on there. One, there is some change. So I will tell you, we probably need to have some more discussion on those. But I will tell you that the plumbing code is also changing. And I think it's going to incorporate some of those things that you're asking for. There was not time, as you can tell with everything we've gone on, to vet that stuff out.
I
We really need
did
to sit
submit it
down.
more than a year ago.
Yeah, we need to sit down and we look at the stuff we're going through. We need to sit down and
Yeah.
go through that. There are
Yeah.
some good concerns, valid concerns around that.
I
And we need to
think,
talk through them.
I think the plumbing code thing is pretty good, but when you tell me there wasn't time, I submitted them more than a year ago. How much time in advance do I need to submit things to have them considered?
Yeah, no, you're right. Good, poor choice of words.
I think in this case,
But-
Kevin, we didn't have a building official that we could run it by. And so that's one thing we wanted to do. So it's not like we're ignoring it. I just think for the purpose of.
I'm not
meeting
taking it
this code-
personally.
No,
No.
but you did submit it over a
So,
year ago. We do understand
But
that.
but I also submitted
Yeah.
some landscaping ordinances which didn't make it into here as well.
I
And
don't remember those.
yeah, I'd be happy to submit them again.
I'm
Yeah,
not
we'll-
saying that you didn't. I'm just
We'll
saying I
go
don't.
Back and look at those.
So, and we can certainly go back. I mean, you can see how long it's taken to get the ones that we've had in there.
Well,
So we
it
can
took
certainly
us
go
nearly
through and
6
do those.
years to get to the point where we just resolved tonight. I even forget what it was now, but there was something we've been talking about for 6 years that just got resolved tonight. So look, I know these things take time, but especially when one of us comes up, takes the time to come up with something and submit it. I think we should at least consider it.
If you'll
Yeah.
redirect those to us, we'll make sure. we get
Happy
those
to do that.
reviewed.
Okay,
We write staff.
so with that said, we need to table this until June 4th. It's our
Nope.
next meeting.
The whole thing or just the
Whole thing.
building?
We're not going to discuss it. We're not going to, I want to see some fresh stuff based off of everything that was said and discussed tonight before
Okay.
we approve anything.
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilwoman?
I'll move that we
Mr.
table.
Mr. Chairman, help me for, You have some guests that want
Oh,
to
I'm sorry.
Oh,
talk. Let's keep the public
Did
hearing
you-
open.
Okay, so come up here and state your name and address there. That's fine. I'm sorry. I forgot.
Todd Collins, 4718 North Echo Summit Way, Star, Idaho. I just want to know, right now, I have a bunch of stuff I want to talk about Title VIII, but can we give input at the next meeting
Mhm.
after
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
see the wordsmithing
Yes.
on the rest of the document? And how about submitting letters? Because they were supposed to be in on the 2nd. Can that be?
We never received it. Did you?
No, because I didn't even know about this until yesterday.
Okay.
So last night and today I put together what I could on what I could read. But since this whole process is being extended,
Mr. Mayor, the staff would be happy to.
Yeah.
We can
Okay.
receive those and
Absolutely.
comment on.
Yeah.
it. Absolutely.
It's all about the public process, man.
Thanks for being.
That showed up. Please tell us what you think.
yeah.
now I do have handouts for you guys if you want them now.
Just give them
For what we have.
staff right now. Yeah.
Okay.
On that. We'll get them all out. I'm going to have them fix up a lot of the stuff here that we talked about tonight.
I want your thoughts on pigs and
Get
chickens.
Councilman Nielsen stuff in there too. All right.
June
So
4th.
with that said, can we move on there? Yes.
All right, Mayor Chadwick. I'll move that we table item 6A and 6B to the public hearing for UDC update and municipal code update until June 4th.
Okay, we got a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We got a motion, a second by Councilman Nielsen. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call?
Wheelock,
Aye.
Salmonson, Nielsen.
Aye.
That motion carries. All right, let's move on to item 7A. Let's get these other two items done so we can get out. All right,
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilwoman.
I've looked at this and good with it, so I'll move that we approve item 7A, development agreement modification for Milepost Commons. Can I just leave it at that one?
Leave it, give us the file number.
File DA-21-15-MOD.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Nobody wants to second it?
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilman Nielsen?
I don't know what the modification was in this. Can we talk about what's being changed?
Sean?
I mean, I read it, but I don't know what the modification is.
Let Sean pull it up here real
Same.
quick.
So as you recall, Milestone Ranch subdivision was approved several years ago with a development agreement. When Milepost subdivision was approved by the council a month to a month and a half ago, we modified the existing Milestone Ranch subdivision development agreement to include that subdivision. And what we did is we amended and restated the original development agreement. So it brought all of the original conditions of approval and items in the original Milestone and then included the Milepost. And so what staff did is we broke up, so brought in the original Milestone Ranch conditions of approval, including setbacks, things like that, additional requirements, the ITD proportionate share, things like that. Then we added a new section 3, the development use standards for Milepost Commons subdivision, which includes the number of lots, acreage, zoning, site design, exhibit B, maximum number of residential lots, and the approved setbacks. And if you recall, the developer had asked for 5-foot setbacks. You had stated that they needed to be 7.5. That's included in the development agreement.
Okay.
And then the additional standards.
Yeah, so if it's just the addition of that,
But that's it in a nutshell.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. Roll call?
Wheelock,
Aye.
Salmonson, Nielsen.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Move on to item 7B, the River House parking lot. We'll have our city engineer up here to talk to us real quick about the bid documents for our upcoming parking lot. Yeah, you can hand them out. Yep. And so this is, so everybody's aware, this is for the parking lot down there, excuse me, on that property just north of the River House. So Ryan will talk to this and when we're planning on putting it out the bid and whatnot.
So you received most of the information in your packet, but unfortunately, we didn't have the drawing in the packet. So I've handed that out. It's also, you can see it's up on the screen now as well. The intent really is to, we bought that property just north of the River House and the River House parking lot. We are going to extend the parking and more or less mirror on the north side of the drive aisle. But we've got it laid out in such a way that we can actually get a third row of parking stalls there. You'll notice on the very north edge of the property, on the east side of the property, a little cutout there where we don't have a parking stall. That's the existing well house is there. The intent is to utilize that at some point in time to supplement our irrigation for the park and the River House. The other thing that you'll notice is in the very southwest corner, there is a spot for a future restroom facility. You will hear about this more at our budget hearing next week, but we are hoping to budget for a bathroom similar to what we just put in Pavilion Park. One of those, just bring it out, set it down. As part of this work, we want to include running utilities out of that property. We want to run some utilities throughout the this new parking lot for a future location of a municipal building, whether that be an event center or whatever it might be. On the northeast corner of the property, well, we've got a utility contractor out there. We want to run stubs for this bathroom as well.
And that'll be an alternate though, it won't be included. It'll be an alternate for you to decide if you want to do that now or later.
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilman Nielsen?
what does the future restroom facility serve?
That is down by the parking lot for the Riverwalk.
Okay.
So that is intended mostly for the Riverwalk.
Take away the porta potties down there
Yep.
and put that in there and provide, we're going to provide a for you to look at for budget wise. That it would also provide possible restrooms for events that are out here in the grass
Mhm.
area as well. So it'll be multifunctional.
Thank you.
Okay,
So we would like your permission to finalize this design, send it out to bid later this month. We don't have another council meeting other than our
June 4th, well, our workshop.
But so we didn't want to wait till June to send this out to bid. So our hope is to send this out to bid 2 weeks from now, get bids back on June 12th so we can bring them to council for review and possible approval on June 18th.
And it's how many days did you say? 75-day project?
75 to substantial, 90-day for our final completion.
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilman Nielsen?
I move that we, guess we're not really approving something, but
You're approving to put the bid documents out to bid.
yeah, we're authorizing
There we go.
authorizing you to send the bid documents out for bid and approve this design.
Okay, we got a motion?
Second.
We got a second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call?
Wheelock. Yeah. Salmonson.
Aye.
Nielsen.
Yep.
Everybody is tired. That motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Ryan. It is it is 10:50 and we are adjourned.